3I Atlas was discovered on July 1st by the Atlas telescope in Chile. It originated from outside our solar system and will exit permanently after perihelion today, October 30th, 2025. 3I Atlas is the size of Manhattan, which makes it too big for a typical comet. Its path through our solar system has it skimming right by Venus, Mars, and Jupiter in a fine-tuned path that has a 0.005% chance of being natural. It is producing its own light, and it has a sunward-facing tail glowing in front of it, which is very unusual for a comet. Based on these details, Harvard astrophysicist Avi Loeb suggests the object could be artificial. But the symbolism behind it goes much further. Comets and other planetary objects in the sky have been seen as way signs for a new age, a new era, or great change for thousands of years of written history. In the Bible, there is wormwood, which appears 7 times in the Old Testament and once in Revelation. It is associated with bitterness and death. Ancient Hindu writings speak of Dhumaketu, a fiery comet marking the end of an age and the dawn of the next cosmic cycle. The Mayans wrote of the Kukulkan comet that would be seen during the shift into the New World. And the Hopi wrote of the blue star Kachina that would usher in the fifth world after a purification. The cataclysmic shifts recorded in the Epic of Gilgamesh from ancient Mesopotamia involves a passing planetary object called Nibiru. Nostradamus described comets and objects in the sky marking the birth of a new age. And the 3I in 3I Atlas points to the third eye, the third ventricle in the brain, and the awakening of consciousness in a human being, which is what the astrology suggests as well. During its perihelion, there will be a grand water trine, a rare event where 3 planets in the 3 water signs form an equilateral triangle. Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn, the 3 most influential planets, will all be in water signs. This symbolizes cleansing, purification, adaptability, and the transformative power of flow. In Western occult philosophy, comets are active agents of spiritual forces that drive human evolution by introducing new cosmic impulses into our planetary system. Overall, comets represent the creative forces that disrupt earthly routine and introduces new qualities and impulses to human evolution. Just as a woman brings a new child into the family, the comet injects a new dynamic into human spiritual growth. According to the teachings of Rudolf Steiner, as a comet passes over us, it collects harmful spiritual substances, which are then carried away and transformed. As they pass, they also introduce new spiritual energies that accelerate humanity's evolutionary process. But that's not to say it makes things easier. He said that the 1910 appearance of Halley's Comet would bring a new impulse that could deepen materialism and distract humanity from its spiritual path. And in 1913, the Federal Reserve Bank was born, the epitome of spiritual rot. Steiner taught that humanity's evolutionary leap requires the individual's deliberate choice, and that one must persist in the shadow of darkness in order to raise their consciousness. Greg Reese reporting.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Diamond Report Live. Yes, Greg Reese is definitely a person worth supporting, and I hope you agree that he puts out some really good work, and I enjoy showing his videos as sort of a warm-up for people to collect together and show up on time, more or less, for the Diamond Report Live. And guess what? Not only did we fall back an hour, but we are starting the show an hour early tonight. So hello and welcome. And for the new faces out there who decided to, or maybe still will, decide to show up tonight and give it a whirl, we are at the Diamond Report Live. My name is Doug Diamond, and thank you for being here, you guys. Certainly appreciate it. It is 9:05 p.m. That is Central Time. I decided to move up the show a little bit just because I know it's really hard for the folks on the East Coast who really have to stay up late to see the full show. So this show, as the crawler across the bottom says, generally goes 2 or 3 hours. So we will be here for a little while. Thank you guys for being here tonight. I thought I would start with this scripture because it kind of goes, I think, with what Greg was saying on the video that we just watched. And there will be signs in the sun, in the moon, and in the stars, and on the earth distress of nations with perplexity, the sea and the waves roaring, men's hearts failing them for fear, for the expectation of those things which are coming on the earth. For the powers of the heavens will be shaken, and they will see the Son of Man coming in a cloud with power and great authority. So that is yet to happen. And more, I think, is being revealed to us every week. So hello and welcome to the Diamond Report Live. Just thought I would give you that little bit of scripture there. That was Luke 21:25 through 27. If you happen to be listening on audio only, and I wanted to mention this as well. Greg mentioned several things in that video, one of which he called Nibiru, I think is how he pronounced it. But yeah, I don't really put a lot of stock in the whole Nibiru thing. But I do think Planet X, which is a mini constellation, not just one planet, I do think that is worth watching. And I'm not too concerned personally with the whole 3i Atlas thing. I think it's mostly just a lot of, I guess you could call it clickbait. I don't really see that as that much. I don't think it's going to be that important, but I do think it will be something that the powers that be could use. That doesn't mean that they will, but they could. I do think, though, that the Nemesis giant in the Planet X system, mini constellation, which can already be seen, we went through that a few weeks ago on the show where I showed multiple pictures. I do think that is certainly worth paying attention to, and could even be the Wormwood system that we've heard so much about. Wormwood, as talked about in Revelation. So anyway, yeah, this is a good site, Yowza.com, YOWUSA. Nemesis unfurls its wings. The world's embroiled in chaos and distraction as the forces of good and evil engage in a series of moves and countermeasures. And in the far distance, we look skywards at 3i Atlas with a feeling of mystery and dread. In all this commotion, Nemesis, our sun's smaller binary twin, has unfolded its wings virtually unnoticed, even though it is a more worrisome harbinger of what is to come. To the image on the right, bearing the title of this article, this is an old artist's rendering created over 20 years ago, long before the advent of AI, yet it has nonetheless captivated us for decades because it resonates with our imagination as if it taps into an ancient racial genetic imprint. In August 2025, Nemesis, a brown dwarf star with a mini constellation of planets and moons, began revealing its colors, and in September it unfurled its true wings. Very few took note, while most are blind to the meaning of what is to come. Now, in this article, you will see actual images of Nemesis unfurling its wings. And then it kind of goes back here to Nemesis in 2022 versus now. And it says, unlike our sun, Nemesis is a brown dwarf star approximately 7 times the size of Jupiter. Below is a panel of 3 observation photos based on our Telegram Yowza observations, Telegram channel, in order of appearance. And you can see it here. In the left plane, we see Nemesis with a daylight side. Below is the actual color of the stars rendered by most smartphones. But what is important to note is the sunlight side. Okay. A brown dwarf emits far less light than our own sun, which is why we see a sunlit side in this image with our sun above it. We can expect to see this effect in the years to come, so it's worth keeping in mind. In the middle frame, there is no sunlit side due to solar alignment. Likewise, keep this in mind as well, right here. However, the third pane to the far right represents a remarkable image of Nemesis submitted to us by a gentleman who used a digital camera with a powerful zoom lens. In the years ahead, we'll be able to see it in the same way with the naked eye, because for a time, Nemesis will become the largest omnipresent object in our sky for several years, right here. So, wow. Of course, it remains to be seen if this is actually going to happen. But the point is, we can see this now if you have the right location on the Earth and you are looking in the right place, which is generally at dawn and at sunset, I guess. And then depending on the curvature of the Earth, yes, a round Earth, it would dictate whether or not you could even see it, because it is behind the sun, or at least right next to the sun for all intents and purposes, so it's too bright to see most of the time. But that is something that this website goes into a lot of really good detail about, so it's something you can take a look at if you want. It's a good site, yowza.com, YOWUSA, and it just sort of reminded me when I watched the Greg Reese video earlier today that we should probably do a quick little Planet X and Nemesis update, because personally I think that would probably have more connection to Wormwood than Nibiru and Ancient Aliens and so forth, as some of the other stories out there go. So anyway, let's see here. We've got another one here that I wanted to show you guys. This is the USDA site. This was brought to my attention from Hal's website, HalTurnerRadioShow.com, and he said there was a really big, bold notice across the website here, and that's what we see at the top, so I thought I'd just pull it up. This is on the USDA.gov site in reference to the whole SNAP program, which has been the story pretty much the last few days, maybe week. Senate Democrats have now voted 13 times to not fund the food stamp program, also known as the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, SNAP. Bottom line, the well has run dry. At this time, there will be no benefits issued November 1st. We are approaching an inflection point for Senate Democrats. They can continue to hold out for health care for illegal aliens and gender mutilation procedures, or reopen the government so mothers, babies, and even the most vulnerable among us can receive critical nutrition assistance. So yeah, I do think that would be a good idea. However, it's like all government programs, it is severely abused by many, many people. But it is interesting that they have this notice across the top of the USDA website. And for a government shutdown, I guess they got some IT person somewhere to do that update for them. Anyway, that was an interesting thing, I thought. And yeah, Hal Turner mentioned that on his website. We'll get to that in just a second. But I found these tweets, and I thought there were some pretty interesting things here in these pretty recent tweets. This is from Secretary Brooke Rollins. On my first day at the USDA, we told every state to send us their SNAP data so that we could make sure illegal immigrants are not getting benefits meant for American families. 29 states stepped up and 21 blue states refused, and 2 sued us for asking. And she says, and guess what? In just the states that cooperated, we've already uncovered massive fraud. The Democrat Party has turned its back on working Americans and built its entire strategy around protecting illegal aliens. They know if the handouts stop, those illegals will go back home, and Democrats will lose 20 plus seats after the next census. There's a new sheriff in town, and it says, at POTUS will not tolerate waste, fraud, or abuse while hardworking Americans go hungry. So anyway, there is kind of an official, maybe official, unofficial post here from the Secretary of the USDA. And there are some other interesting tweets on here. This one from a different channel, I guess you could call it, a different account on X. Only in America do we have $1,200 iPhones looking to see if their SNAP benefits hit. Yeah. That kind of covers it, doesn't it? Anyway, there's quite a few tweets on here, and we'll link to these in the Substack post. So make sure you're on that list if you're not already. That is the QR code in the upper left up there. And I found this too. I thought it was worth mentioning because this shows you some of the abuse. Food stamps by ethnicity. percentage of U.S. households receiving SNAP benefits. Now it's saying U.S. households, so I don't know if that's officially, based on census information or what, but you can see that white Americans are right about there, 8.6%. So way down the line here, with Italians and Indians even below that. And then let's see here. We had, what was some of the other ones? Here's Black Americans and Native Americans. So Native Americans are even at a higher percentage, 27% versus about 25% for blacks, as far as the percentage of U.S. households receiving SNAP benefits. But I don't hear the Native Americans out there saying we're going to burn down cities or rob grocery stores or any of that if our benefits get cut off. Have you heard that at all? I haven't heard a single Native American say any such thing. Well, anyway, let's look at Hal's website. I pulled up this one article, but he does have U.S. Department of Agriculture, and he mentions the site that we just looked at. I wanted to see if he had any. He doesn't have any commentary on there, but that's how I knew about the whole thing with the USDA. So thanks to Hal for that information. And then let's see. We wanted to look at one other article on Hal's site, so we'll go back to that. Breaking: Trump warns Nigeria, U.S. military ordered to prepare. So again, the president of peace here. U.S. President Donald Trump has become aware of Islamics in Nigeria operating with impunity as they go about slaughtering Christians. He has just publicly warned Nigeria's government and ordered U.S. forces to make plans to enter Nigeria to eradicate the Islamics committing these killings. Then here's the tweet talking about that. This is Truth Social post. He says, if the Nigerian government continues to allow the killing of Christians, the USA will immediately stop all aid and assistance to Nigeria and may very well go into that now disgraced country, guns a-blazing, to completely wipe out the Islamic terrorists who are committing these horrible atrocities. I'm hereby instructing our Department of War to prepare for possible action. If we attack, it will be fast, vicious, and sweet, just like the terrorist thugs attacked our cherished Christians, warning the Nigerian government better move fast. So the Nigerian government is most likely infiltrated by the very same people who want the Christians dead, my guess is, but they do like the U.S.'s free money, so they may do something themselves. I personally think Trump won't actually go into Nigeria because I do think that he's already spreading the troops, the military across the board fairly thin. So I don't really see that happening, but he does like to put it out there and then see if he can get his way through social media. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, I mean, obviously we don't want to see Christians being killed, but they are being slaughtered en masse in Nigeria right now. So, which is kind of why I always come back to the old timeline here. We are here. That is the fifth seal, and that is martyrdom. So I do think that that is where we are in the world, unfortunately. But it is worse in most of the rest of the world than it is in the United States. So we are blessed to be here for many reasons. All right, let's see. Let's do a follow-up. Just a real quick follow-up on Hurricane Melissa and Jamaica. Hurricane Melissa leaves Caribbean unrecognizable as dead animals litter roads and storm barrels towards the Bahamas. Now, this was a few days ago now. Melissa has carved a path of devastation through the Caribbean, or Caribbean as some people say. As it barrels toward the Bahamas, Melissa pummeled Jamaica on Tuesday, leaving 25,000 tourists stranded, thousands without electricity, and entire towns underwater. At least 8 people have died, including an infant, as a result of the damage. And then this article has quite a bit of detail and quite a few pictures here. Jamaican man says hometown is unrecognizable. So you can see some of the flooding. And I thought this was kind of interesting. King Charles, deeply concerned, quote unquote, by Hurricane Melissa damage. And that got me thinking, okay, well, if that's the case, then surely Jamaica is a Commonwealth country. And guess what? It is. Yes, Jamaica is a Commonwealth country. It gained its independence in 1962 and joined the Commonwealth, a voluntary association of 56 nations. Yes, it's voluntary. The only thing is, you can check in, but you can never leave. Kind of like the Hotel California, right? Jamaica is also a Commonwealth realm, which means it recognizes the British monarch as its head of state, i.e. King Charles III. So the soon-to-be biblical Antichrist is in charge of Jamaica. So isn't that lovely? So further information here, and look at the before and after photos. Top image was taken February 9th, and the bottom photo was captured today, which means I think that was October 30th. Isn't that what we said on this article? Yeah, October 30th. So you can see the devastation on just everything at that end of the island just wiped out. And then aerial shots of St. Elizabeth are heartbreaking. So there's a video embedded there. And quite a few stories. A farmer rescuing his dog in Cuba. Cuba got hit pretty good too, I guess. Dolphins wait out hurricane in private pool. They moved the dolphins to a swimming pool, I guess. So there's a lot of information. I know Daily Mail has a ton of advertisements, which is super annoying, but they do some pretty good reporting as far as the details and pictures. This was a Texas couple who was honeymooning there, who got stranded there. Not sure if they made it home yet, but there's, again, further information if you guys want to look it up, but you can see how terrible it really was. But I wanted to do a follow-up on that. Mr. Dane talked about the hurricane in the most recent GeoWatch report, which we will get to in just a little bit. So I wanted to mention that, and he said that they were saying that it was essentially, for lack of a better word, a Category 6 hurricane. As far as the Charlie Kirk mess, the official story anyway is a mess. New updates on Charlie Kirk's murder indicate that the U.S. military, Israel, and perhaps Egypt are involved. Investigations into the Kirk shooting includes new information about Google Trends searches that showed people tied to the shooting were searched weeks before the shooting. We mentioned that, I think, last week in the show. The gun was discovered at a home that was searched by Israel and Washington, D.C. before the shooting. So that's the first I'd heard of that. Candace Owens said that Charlie was surrounded by people with military backgrounds. Yeah. Pastor Ron McCoy, you may remember him from the memorial service, was even an assistant chief of staff for psychological warfare in the Navy. Isn't that handy? There's a pattern of former military people being embedded in the media and more. So this article kind of barely scratches the surface, but you can pull it up and have a look at it. And some of the video clips in here I think are certainly worth watching. We'll watch this one here in just a second with Candace. But what she's found here is pretty amazing, and that is that apparently there were some military folks following old Charlie around for quite some time, maybe years, but certainly months, and just happened to be landing and showing up in the same areas and same towns, cities that he was giving his speeches in. And that's tied back to two Egyptian-based planes in particular. So one could ask, okay, why would Egypt care? And Egypt military, well, they're pretty darn good friends with Israel, aren't they? And perhaps Ukraine. So there are definitely some things to look at. But Kash Patel has already said, no, we're not going to look at any of the out-of-country possibilities. Only within the U.S., only within the trans movement. There's nothing to see here. So I'm beginning to think, and many of you guys are, that Tyler Robinson, not only is he innocent, but in fact he may have been simply a patsy and just used as the scapegoat, and always had been set up for that reason. Kirk's security team was originally reported to be Israeli, but it seems this was fake news. Integrity Security Solutions, founded by Brian Harpole, is reported to be the security contractor for TPUSA. Dan Flood's the head of TPUSA Security. September 10th, Harpole was on the ground near Charlie in the security team at Utah Valley University. He's thought to be the one wearing the blue shirt and aviator sunglasses. The man in the black T-shirt behind Kirk, who appeared to make strange gestures with his hands and arms before the shooting, is believed to be Dan Flood. Then here's an article here that is linking to a Substack, someone else's Substack. Over the past few weeks, new information has been introduced into the Charlie Kirk shooting event. Mikey McCoy, the chief of staff for TPUSA, and we mentioned this last week, has been criticized for calmly walking behind and away from the stage after the shot rang out and then communicating on his phone. McCoy's father, Pastor Rob McCoy, again, the same guy who put the QR code up in the memorial service, Pastor Rob McCoy said that his son was on the phone and covered in Charlie's blood at the time of the shooting. Mikey did not attend to Charlie and had no blood on him. I think you could say that about many of the people around Charlie. According to Charlie's wife, Erica, Mikey called her immediately following the shooting. And perhaps that's the case, but why was there no pause? It almost looked like the shot happened and he was on the phone instead of racing to see what happened to Charlie, because he was his right-hand man. He was always with him. So it says Candace has discovered that a number of TPUSA employees and others who surrounded Kirk had held positions in the U.S. military and may have acted as handlers. For instance, Frank Turek was a former officer in the U.S. Navy. Andrew Colvette's brother and cousin hold high positions in the military. Pastor Rob McCoy was a captain in the Navy and was the assistant chief of staff for psychological warfare in the Navy. But it's probably a coincidence. Dr. Trotter, Lee Trotter, the doctor who reportedly worked on Charlie, was a resident with the Air Force. Dr. Amaro, who is Utah's new medical examiner, was a major in the Army. And it just goes on. Candace said that when she worked at PragerU, a pro-Zionist media outlet, there were 2 former military pastors embedded there, and when she began working for the Daily Wire, Ben Shapiro's Zionist media outfit, John Lewis, a former Navy intelligence officer who became a pastor, was embedded in the business. Here is a clip from her show on 1028. So this is where she's talking about the military and Mikey McCoy and so forth. But the most interesting show I've seen was the most recent one. She did a Friday broadcast, which she never does. She, as far as I can tell, always takes Friday off. She did a Friday broadcast last week to impart the information about the planes, the Egyptian planes in the military, Egyptian military people. So let's take a look at this clip. I do have it queued up here. I do have to shift gears just slightly to be able to share the audio with you. I could play the video from here and you could see it. However, on this platform, I have to unshare and reshare. So let me do that. This 2-minute, 50-second clip from Candace. This is from her show. October 30th is when this tweet was. So it must be from the October 30th show, not the Friday show, I guess.
I can now report to you that it is a fact that on 9/4, there were, this was not some dropping by in Utah as they were trying to claim because the plane needed to be serviced. That's what they ran with. They ran with, this could have been a routine servicing. I guess there's just no place from Egypt all the way to Utah that an Egyptian military plane can get a tire changed. This is totally routine. Nothing to see here. Well, I'm telling you that for a fact, that plane was carrying military subcontractors. And for a fact, they were dropped off in Provo, okay? And that they did not make it back to Cairo. I showed you the plane left. They left on September 10th. It then laid over in Wilmington, Delaware, and departed back for Cairo on the 11th. I am telling you that when that plane left, okay, those people were mysteriously missing from that plane, okay? What's going on here? Why are Egyptian military subcontractors, what are Egyptian military subcontractors doing in the middle of Provo, Utah on the day that Charlie Kirk was assassinated? Okay. Again, I am saying as a fact Kash Patel, please feel free to dispute this. In fact, I almost demand that you dispute it. I think you must. You've been saying everybody's conspiracy theorists. These conspiracies are dangerous. Thinking is dangerous. That aircraft was not in Utah for any routine servicing, okay? Rather extraordinarily, this person told me that it was there on some discreet mission. So discreet that this individual was scared for their life to present this information, but felt compelled to present it because they too were horrified, like the rest of the world. Again, the mistake that was made here was executing him publicly. People felt something, right? They felt something. They understood that whatever happened here was a tremendous act of evil. And so what it led to was goodness, more people standing up and doing something brave and saying, we need to root out this evil from our society. What were they doing there? When did they leave? Who are these individuals? I don't understand. Kash Patel, tell us about this flight. Tell us who was on it, okay? I wanted to be very thorough here in presenting this information.
Anyway, yeah, Kash Patel says there's nothing to see here. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. Okay? All right, so anyway, I wanted to play that for you. That's actually from the day before the real announcement where she goes through the two Egyptian planes, provides the tail numbers, the flight radar app, Flight Radar 24 app, information from that, detailing the time, the days that these planes are taking off and landing, and it happens to coincide very much so with Charlie's schedule. So, but yes, Kash Patel, the FBI say there is nothing to see here. And then this one too, I thought was pretty interesting. I didn't ever see this before. Candace released this as well. Candace released footage showing, now this is on the 27th, so from a few days ago, showing TPUSA staffer Terry Farnsworth, this guy, rushing to film a selfie video moments after Charlie was shot prematurely, declaring him dead. This is the guy that stood up here in the back, took the chair that Charlie was sitting on, and then right after he got shot, falls out of, he picks up the chair, which is part of the crime scene, puts it down below the camera and steps on the chair and grabs the camera and takes the camera down to pull the SD cards out of him so that he has the video evidence. This is the guy. So he makes a selfie video within seconds of Charlie being shot, literally pointing at himself, but you can see them rushing Charlie to the car that they eventually take him to the hospital in and prematurely declaring him dead. So again, very strange. Just so many weird anomalies and strange things. There's a lot here on this website, so feel free to have a look at this. Again, if you want to see the latest and best information, I would definitely recommend the Friday show that Candace did, where she's going into really good detail on the two Egyptian planes. So I think she's going to crack this case way before anyone from the official world might. And in fact, all that will be hushed completely and shut down completely because they have given notices to people who are supposedly involved in this case to not talk, to say nothing. So because of that, we won't hear anything else much officially, I think. So it's up to people like Candace to do the research and find exactly what's going on. So anyway, more power to her. I think she's doing really good work, and hopefully we'll know even more information this coming week, which I tend to think we probably will. Kash Patel flips out after Kirk assassination foreign ties probed, which is what I was saying just a few minutes ago. Joe Kent is the National Counterterrorism Center Director and is also a deputy to Tulsi, the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. He examined FBI files concerning Charlie Kirk's murder over the past several weeks to investigate whether Tyler Robinson, the man charged with assassinating Charlie, had support from someone else, a foreign power, or another entity. The inquiry led by Kent alarmed FBI Chief Kash Patel that it could raise questions about whether Robinson was the lone wolf shooter. Mainstream media has been ignoring this story. After the killing, U.S. intelligence agencies were investigating whether any foreign governments were involved in the event. This person, Sagar Enjeti, said that this seems like a turf war between Patel and Tulsi Gabbard, while other critics are concerned that there's a cover-up. You think? Anyway, yes, I think Kash Patel is already in process of helping to cover up, and, the whole question as far as was there another foreign entity involved? Seems to me like, and seems to most people really from the moment that it happened, that there was a pretty much definitive answer to that question, and that is yes. The question is who? Everyone jumped on the Israel bandwagon, and that may be true. And Israel, Netanyahu Netanyahu in particular has acted very, very strangely since this whole thing happened. And that could mean that he was involved, that they were involved. But what about Egypt? What about those ties? What about Ukraine? There's definitely a lot of roads to go down, so hopefully we'll find out more. Anyway, that article and the one before it were on needtoknow.news. And then this one has more SNAP information. SNAP benefits shut down, a good time to reassess. 54% of federal benefit recipients are non-citizens. Liberal media claims that 89.4% of SNAP recipients are U.S.-born citizens and less than 11% are foreign-born. Therefore, they say Republicans are wrong to argue the benefits are going to illegals. However, more than half of all illegal immigrant households have at least one U.S.-born child through whom they can receive their aid. Nearly 2.7 million households have at least one illegal head and one child, and more than 5.3 million U.S.-born children of illegal aliens hold Social Security numbers. The total estimated cost to American taxpayers of providing SNAP benefits to the children of illegal aliens is almost $5.8 billion. According to the Center for Immigration Studies, data from the 2022 census indicates that 54% of households headed by immigrants, including naturalized citizens, legal residents, and illegal immigrants, used one or more major welfare programs. At the start of 2023, the net cost of illegal immigration to the U.S. at the federal, state, and local levels was estimated at $150.7 billion. So anyway, again, more corruption, more fraud. So it's definitely time to reassess. Hopefully that will happen. Hopefully only the people that deserve it will get it. I think it's supposed to be a permanent fix, not a permanent fix. I think it's supposed to be a temporary fix so people can get back on their feet. But so many people see it as an entitlement, and it becomes a permanent fix, unfortunately. All right, two more from this same site. NASA just activated the Earth Defense Force ahead of 3I Atlas's arrival. Okay? So here's a embedded redacted video, but the top of this article says, what is happening with 3I Atlas? Some say that the large interstellar object is an alien spacecraft barreling towards Earth. Others say it's a comet, while others say it's an absolute large psychological operation used to gin up fear over an impending alien invasion coming to Earth. Not a bad point there. NASA just activated its Earth Defense Group over possible concerns of a Manhattan-sized comet with possible alien technology. 56 nations have signed the U.S.-led Artemis Accords to conduct future space exploration, mining, tourism, etc. Why is NASA activating an Earth Defense Group over this comet? China is trying to build a rival initiative. Dr. Michael Salla, who writes at exopolitics.org, said that there is a UN resolution to study asteroids for any potential impact on Earth. Yeah, I think they've determined that it's not going to impact Earth, but yes, asteroid tax incoming. That's a good point. So get ready to pay the asteroid tax. We'll have to if we want to keep living. You know how that works. And then, let's see. One more from needtoknow.news. Governor Gavin Newsom signs a bill allowing electric company to use taxpayer dollars to pay their liability for fires. Lovely, huh? Governor Newsom signed a bill into law that allows Edison Electric Company to start charging customers for any Eaton fire costs exceeding the state's $21 billion wildfire fund. The bailout was quickly tucked into the 231-page bill just before the deadline. Pretty handy. Damages for the Eaton fire have been estimated to be as high as $45 billion. Videos captured the January 7th, 2025 inferno igniting under a century-old transmission line that Edison had not used for 50 years. The wildfires swept through Altadena, destroying 9,400 homes and other structures and killing at least 19 people. Edison now faces hundreds of lawsuits filed by victims who claim Edison failed to safely maintain its equipment and left in place the unused transmission line, knowing that it posed a fire risk. Even though the utilities have raised electric rates to charge customers for billions of dollars of fire prevention work, their electrical equipment continues to spark blazes. Edison is a generous donor to Gavin Newsom and recently gave $190,000 to the state Democrat Party, which is helping Newsom campaign for Proposition 50, which would redraw congressional districts. So everybody is in the back pockets of everybody else. Sounds like. Anyways, it's an effective bailout. Edison benefits from fine print in Newsom's last-minute utility legislation. So once again, Governor Newsom strikes again. So yes, and don't worry, we're going to build a smart city in its place, in the place of all those 9,400 homes. And I heard too that a friend of mine told me that they, as far as the hurricane in Jamaica, that was also a potential spot for a new smart city. So I'm not sure if that's true. I just heard a friend of mine told me that. I haven't had a chance to look and see if that's true, but I would not be surprised. Put it that way. Okay, technocracy.news, 3 articles from here. Dubai, the ugly life under technocracy. Dubai is the perfect model for technocracy on the planet. The golden age appearance of Dubai is a very expensive facade that hides tyranny, brutality, scientific dictatorship, total surveillance, and social credit monitoring. Forget human rights at any level. Forget free speech. In short, Dubai is a repressive dictatorship run as a technocracy. But isn't it beautiful? Yeah, only on the surface. And then let's see. Next article on technocracy.news. Over 100 BSL-4 bioweapons labs now operate worldwide, with more under construction. These are the most dangerous people on the planet. Global bans of this kind of research don't work. Government oversight is a joke. The only solution is to get rid of these megalomaniac technocrats is to swoop in and escort them off the premises, take away their security card to prevent re-entry, hand them a restraining order in order to prevent them from conducting research ever again, and finally burn the research facility to the ground. Of course, we are just reading an article here. I'm not saying go burn anything down. After that, each person should be monitored for life to make sure they don't pick up a test tube ever again. So that is one of the technocracy.news articles. The third one is a little bit of Alice in Wonderland here. OpenAI says 1 million ChatGPT users talk about suicide. This odd story appears to be written by AI and probably by a competitor of OpenAI. This is not just a problem with OpenAI, but also with Grok and Meta and multiple companion apps circulating around. The problem stems from the collapse of reality, and it can strike anybody at any time. Sycophant responses from AI coupled with sensory misalignment, seeing or hearing fakery, that's in parentheses, land people in a state of mental vertigo. When you cannot tell reality from a fence post, you are in the hands of the rabbit in Alice in Wonderland. Yes. Anyway, those are the 3 technocracy.news articles, so feel free to have a look at those. couple of Liberty Beacon articles I pulled up. Another one on Snap. SnapFix require every recipient to reapply and prove their U.S. citizenship. I think that's a good start. Federal judges ruled Friday that the Trump administration must use emergency contingency funds to cover supplemental nutrition assistance program SNAP payments for 42 million people. I don't think they have that many funds, do you? Amid the ongoing government shutdown, which is now in its, I think, 33rd day. Well, I think that was 33rd day, a day or two ago, maybe. SNAP benefits ended on Saturday, but the court has given the administration until Monday to appeal. Yes, or what? I don't know. But yes, that would be good. Prove you're a citizen instead of just giving SNAP assistance to anyone and everyone. Illegal and non. All right, and then this one, timeline, the auto pen debate. You guys might remember this little guy from your childhood if you happen to see these cartoons. The House Oversight Committee's report, the Biden auto pen presidency, can be broken down into two basic parts. Biden's inner circle, or Politburo, as the report characterizes it, worked like the two guys in Weekend at Bernie's, constantly propping up the president to hide his declining cognitive condition from the public. Two, as a result, Biden was often not in charge. Thus, the need for the administration to use the auto pen multiple times. Barring evidence of executive actions taken during the Biden presidency showing that President Biden indeed took a particular executive action, the committee deems these actions taken through the use of auto pen as void. The validity of the executive actions allegedly approved and signed largely by auto pen by the president must be reviewed to determine whether legal action is necessary to ameliorate consequences of any illegitimate pardons granted. Are you listening, Dr. Fauci? Or executive actions implemented throughout the Biden auto pen presidency. The committee finds numerous executive actions, particularly clemency actions taken during the Biden administration, were illegitimate. So we will see if that sticks, but you can see the bill is watching closely. Interestingly, the committee's report does not address legislation that was signed by auto pen, even though the U.S. Constitution says presidents shall sign bills they approve. Still, courts have not ruled whether it's legal to sign legislation with an auto pen. In 2011, Obama became the first president to sign, quote, sign legislation by auto pen. The administration relied on a 2005 Justice Department opinion for its legal justification. So anyway, the auto pen presidency continued and continued. All right. So now we're going to do a Bob's Big Boy update. And if you've been paying attention, you know who I'm going to speak about. Bob's Big Boy. Speaker Mike Johnson silent after GOP senators urge House hearings impeachment over Arctic frost. So there he is. Bob's Big Boy. House Speaker Johnson is noticeably silent on whether there will be House hearings and impeachment proceedings following bombshell revelations in the Arctic frost scandal. Senate Republicans revealed Wednesday that the DOJ and FBI under then President Biden, fake President Biden, compiled what's been described as an enemies list of Republicans. Didn't Nixon try that? And he got skewered for it. And he didn't even use it. It was also revealed that the Biden administration seized the phone records of several high-ranking Republicans as part of its Get Trump lawfare. In particular, Jack Smith secretly obtained phone record data from at least 8 senators and 1 congressman, according to Senator Chuck Grassley. Jack Smith subpoenaed both Verizon and AT&T for records, with AT&T challenging the legality of the subpoena. Note that Verizon did not. I'm just adding that. Senator Ted Cruz said that Jack Smith's subpoena to AT&T requesting Cruz's records was accompanied by an order from a judge Judge James Boasberg, the same judge who had been issuing nationwide injunctions to stop Trump from executing his mandate. Judge Boasberg issued an order to AT&T and signed that order prohibiting AT&T from informing me of this subpoena for at least 1 year, Cruz said. How about that? So yes, they were going after everyone. Arctic Frost was an investigation led by the Biden administration to target Republicans in key battleground states, as explained by this website, thefederalist.com. This inquiry would lead to Smith's elector case against Trump. Then FBI Director Christopher Wray sent a memorandum to then Attorney General Merrick Garland claiming that, quote, fraudulent certificates of electors' votes were submitted to the archivist of the United States, end quote, for Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, and Wisconsin. Wray also asserted that these votes were part of a grand conspiracy to obstruct the certification of the 2020 election. That was because they got in the way. Trump and his folks got in the way of their fraud. But it didn't matter. So anyway, that is the most recent information here on Arctic Frost. And note that the term Arctic Frost they used for, this particular operation, if you want to call it that, usually they have a random computer program type thing pick the names of these operations, but they specifically either ignored it or had the computer spit out Arctic Frost because Arctic Frost is a type of Florida orange. And they specifically wanted to target Orange Man because Orange Man bad. So if you guys didn't know that, it's a little piece of interesting information, I think. So yes, that was our report tonight from Bob's Big Boy. Okay. So yes, the massive UK train stabbing that happened. If you didn't know about it, don't worry though. Authorities insist that there was no indication of any terrorism whatsoever. Police briefly invoked Plato, the code for a marauding terrorist attack, but later withdrew the designation after finding no evidence of terrorism. Yes, that's because they figured out who it was that did the terrorizing, and because of their skin color, they couldn't possibly be terrorists. That's what they determined. Yeah. Following a mass stabbing spree aboard a high-speed LNER, maybe liner, train traveling from Doncaster to London, carried out by two suspects, one a black British national, British national, yeah, and the other a British national of Caribbean descent, aged 32 and 25. Yes, and they were screaming Allah Akbar, by the way. But it wasn't terrorism, because how could it be? They mean well, they just meant to kill everybody. Anyway, King Charles commented on the attack. My wife and I were truly appalled and shocked to hear of the dreadful knife attack that took place on board a train in Cambridgeshire last night. Our deepest sympathy and thoughts are with all those affected, because that will fix everything. And their loved ones. Says, we are particularly grateful to the emergency services for their response to this awful incident. So you can see how King Charles puts himself above it. Like, he's out there saying deepest sympathy and thoughts. But he was the guy in charge of all of this who could have put a stop to these illegal immigrants coming into the UK. And yet, he's really sorry it happened. I guess we're supposed to believe that. I'm looking to see what the details of the mass stabbing exactly were. Says British Transport Police said 11 people were hospitalized, 9 of whom suffered life-threatening injuries. As of early Sunday, 4 have been discharged with 2 remaining in critical condition. So 2 are still in critical condition. Doesn't say yet that anyone has died, so that's good, but man. British Transport Police declared a major incident yesterday. In counterterrorism policing were initially supporting our investigation. However, at this stage, there's nothing to suggest that this is a terrorist incident. Superintendent John Lovelace told reporters earlier. And you can bet he really knows what he's talking about. There was no terrorism involved. It's just a nice, calm, loving knife stabbing. So you have to smile when you're being stabbed. Because if you're smiling when you're being stabbed and your throat's being slit, it can't possibly be terrorism. You see how that works? Because that's what you're supposed to do in the UK. Which is why I named the show last week, the Diamond Report last week, that vigilante justice may very well be coming to the UK. Personally, I'm okay with that if that's what it takes to stop this stuff from happening. It may be people having to take the law into their own hands. And of course, when that happens, the people that do that will be the ones jailed, not the people who they are taking care of, shall we say. But that may be the only answer for the people in the UK, because guess what? Their guns were taken a very long time ago. So anyways, lovely, huh? So here's a post from Tommy Robinson, I guess, on this whole thing. This is not him. This is obviously somebody else. But he's tweeting, why is it that a witness described the train attack / terrorist as a black man dressed in black, yet it's really hard to find any description of the assailant in published news feeds? Do we really need a description of the assailant? Who's committing all of the rapes and murders and stabbings? Who is it doing that over in the UK? Yeah, see, you have the right to bear knives. Only for a little while. I mean, if they find out white people have them, especially 14-year-old little girls who have knives, they're going to come arrest you. Yeah. Anyway, there's quite a bit of information here. This is a Zero Hedge article, but much can be found on other sites as well. But I thought that one was a pretty good one. A couple of Headline USA site articles. Brennan gets physical with ex-Intel officer questioning his Russia letter. How dare anyone question John Brennan? Embattled former CIA director John Brennan became confrontational with a former intelligence officer after being called out for signing the infamous 2020 letter claiming that the Hunter Biden laptop was part of a Russian disinformation campaign. How could it possibly be? I mean, it's Hunter Biden after all. He never did anything wrong. Video of the exchange was shared by Thomas Special, a former officer in the National Counterintelligence and Security Center who pressed Brennan at a Thursday conference at George Mason University about the letter. Quote, "You misrepresented that," end quote, Brennan shouted, poking his finger at Special's chest. And that is in the video, by the way. We never said it was disinformation. We said it was Russian influence operations, which is what they do. There's a big difference. Yes, but it's all a lie. He sort of ignores that little detail. Special confronted him with his own words, prompting Brennan to jab his finger at least 10 times before he walked away. You can see the back and forth here. This guy is Special, and you can see Brennan poking his finger right in the guy's chest. So, yeah, Brennan means business, doesn't he? He belongs behind bars, is where Brennan actually needs to be. All right, and then this one, also from Headline USA, Feds probing Black Lives Matter for fraud. Could you imagine that there's fraud at Black Lives Matter? Which reminds me, we had a guy a couple times as a guest on Lost Arts Radio years ago now. Maj Toure, I think was his name, and his thing was Black Guns Matter. I always thought that was pretty funny and very clever. But he had the same logo. They had the same logo, except it wasn't Black Lives Matter. It was Black Guns Matter. The criminal investigation began during the Biden administration. How about that? Black Lives Matter organization is reportedly under federal investigation over allegations its leader defrauded donors out of $90 million, most of which came after the George Floyd incident. A group formerly known as Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation, Inc., or BLMGNF, has faced mounting scrutiny for years, particularly that it spent $6 million to buy a mansion in Los Angeles. Yeah, it did. No, it did not. The woman at the head of it did. In a statement, the group claimed it is not a target of any federal criminal investigation. No, not at all. Adding it is committed to full transparency, accountability, and the responsible stewardship of resources dedicated to building a future for black communities. That's all they care about. So never think anything otherwise. But despite the claim, the AP reported that the DOJ issued subpoenas and at least one search warrant as part of an investigation into the BLM Global Network Foundation and other black-led organizations. The criminal investigation, which began during the Biden administration, so you know it was bad if they were even looking into it, comes after several individuals tied to the BLM network and movement have landed themselves under federal scrutiny. Tyree Conyers Page, the founder of Black Lives Matter in Greater Atlanta, also known as Sir Major Page, was sentenced to 42 years in federal prison after he defrauded donors of more than $450,000 for personal expenses. In 2022, BLM grassroots founder Melinda Abdullah sued BLM GNF and co-founder Bowers for allegedly enriching themselves by billing Bowers' consulting company for millions of dollars. Could you imagine that? Black Lives Matter, turns out, is not exactly clean and pure as the wind-driven snow. I had no idea that would be the case. Never suspected. Just in, two planes collide on the tarmac at LaGuardia again. Two planes collided on the tarmac at LaGuardia on Friday evening, according to New York Post. This is the second time that planes have collided on the taxiway at LaGuardia this month. The United plane bumped into another United jet on taxiway amid delays due to bad weather and staffing shortages on Friday evening. Remember, we talked about that last week, that some of the air traffic controllers were going to be having a hard time starting this past week in particular, where people weren't going to be reporting for work. Emergency vehicles responded to the scene, it says. No injuries reported, so that's good. So hopefully nothing bad will happen on these planes taxiing around or landing and taking off, but when you have less and less people there doing their jobs, and the ones that are there doing their jobs not getting paid for what they're doing, at least not at the moment, kind of makes one wonder how long this can be kept up as far as, no major accidents. But yes, tarmac collision on the airport there, the taxiway, I guess you'd call it, but in LaGuardia. So, wow. And then another New York story here. Insanity, Zoran Mamdani plans to tax companies even if they leave New York City. So how dare they leave? One question that keeps coming up about Mamdani's socialist fever dream for New York City is how he's going to pay for all the free stuff that he's planning to give away. This becomes especially complicated when you consider that some wealthy people and companies will flee the city if he becomes mayor. I think they're already doing that because many people are expecting him to win. That's coming up this Tuesday, by the way, that election. Mamdani apparently has a plan for that. He's going to try and tax companies even if they leave the city. It's not exactly clear how he plans to enforce this insane idea. In his latest tax grab scheme, Mamdani vows to tax businesses that leave New York, and it seems any company that merely does business in New York, even if they're headquartered elsewhere. So the way that this tax works, this is a quote from him. So the way that this tax works is it applies to any business doing business here. They could be located in Miami, but if they're doing business in New York, it applies to them. You see, doesn't matter what the law says, apparently. This policy proposal is insane, so insane, in fact, we don't even know how to wrap our heads around it. That's hundreds of thousands of businesses, including international ones. Yep. But he's going to go collect taxes from them. Makes sense to me. Anyways, there are a few more videos embedded there on that particular Gateway Pundit article, if you guys want to take a look. And then, Yes, if you missed it, which you might have, the World Series just happened and the Dodgers won. Los Angeles Dodgers beat the Toronto Blue Jays in 7 games. The last game went extra innings, like 11th inning, I think. Fittingly enough, went to the 11th inning. But what do you do, though, in Los Angeles if your baseball team wins the World Series? What should you do? Well, you should go wild and burn the city down. Because why wouldn't you? Fans go wild after World Series win. LAPD deploys tear gas. The Dodgers may have won the World Series, but the city of Los Angeles nearly lost control Saturday night as rowdy fans, I don't think they were fans, flooded the streets, lighting fireworks, climbing cars, and clashing with cops in post-game celebrations. Yeah, it was just an excuse, wasn't it? LAPD officers were forced to deploy tear gas and less lethal weapons in parts of downtown LA after being struck by bottles and industrial-sized fireworks launched from the crowd. The mayhem erupted shortly after the Dodgers clinched their second straight championship, beating the Toronto Blue Jays in Game 7. Hundreds of fans took over intersections across the city, including Pacoima, Echo Park, and the downtown area, waving flags, blasting music, and turning streets into spontaneous block parties. Things escalated fast when fans started setting off massive fireworks in the middle of crowds, like that. Wow. One self-driving car was vandalized. Can you imagine? I mean, how evil are these people? They vandalized a self-driving car. The poor car. While several officers were hit with debris as they tried to disperse the mobs, LAPD declared a tactical alert and issued dispersal orders around 12:30 a.m., warning anyone who refused to clear the area should be and could be arrested. Mayor Karen Bass, you might know that name, urged Angelenos to celebrate safely, saying, quote, "We love our Dodgers, but there's no excuse for putting people in danger. Unless, of course, you're burning their houses down. That's fine." Despite the tear gas and smashed glass, police say no major injuries were reported, though cleanup crews were out sweeping up busted bottles, burned fireworks, and broken car windows. So welcome to Los Angeles. They are really happy about their Dodgers. Yeah. And more really good news from, I guess, Los Angeles and just Hollywood and the music business in particular. There are no rap songs. So get this headline. This is People magazine. There are no rap songs in the top 40 for the first time in 35 years. This is good news, especially if you don't like rap music. No rap songs in the top 40 for the first time in 35 years. That doesn't mean that the top 40 is really great songs, so don't misinterpret that. But there's no rap songs in it. Pretty weird. Kendrick Lamar and SZA's Luther exits the Billboard Hot 100. So I thought that was kind of interesting. The list now lacks a rap track, ending a 35-year streak for the genre. So I wonder why. 35-year streak of rap songs charting on the Billboard Hot 100 has come to an end. Aren't you sad? I'm really sad. Zohran Mamdani, who is the likely new mayor of New York? ? He was almost unheard of a year ago. Now, Zohran is on the verge of becoming mayor of New York. The 34-year-old's immigrant background and socialist principles appeal to many New Yorkers, but not to Donald Trump. Yeah, and most of the rest of the country. The biggest city in the U.S. will conclude voting in the 2025 mayoral election on November the 4th. The withdrawal of New York's incumbent Democrat Mayor Eric Adams in September means that the city will have a new leader. Rising Democrat star Zohran, activist and unopposed Republican nominee Curtis Sliwa, or former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, who is running as an independent. Imagine that. Considered a huge outsider in the race, Sliwa is a conservative who hosts radio talk shows, describes himself as a populist, and is known in the city for his vigilante-like Guardian Angels group, which aims to prevent crime. But old Zohran here is being flanked by Bernie and AOC, so he's in good company. The communists stand together. Right there. Anyway, that is a DW article and further information about Mamdani. And don't forget, though, his family and he are from Uganda. Family moved from Uganda to South Africa briefly when Zoran was 5 before settling in New York 2 years later. Yes, they have a family compound in Uganda. But he's a New Yorker through and through, so he deserves to be the mayor. We'll see what happens. And then a follow-up on the heist at the Louvre. Amateurs, not professionals, carried out the theft. Security at the Louvre Museum in Paris was outmaneuvered not by a team of professional thieves, but a group of local amateurs, authorities have said. But weren't they saying initially that it was definitely a group of professionals who did this? But now they're saying otherwise. Calling them petty criminals. 4 suspects have been charged and remanded in custody following a heist at the Louvre, are considered more petty thieves than criminal masterminds, a Paris prosecutor said on Sunday. And I think they've determined that these petty thieves are, let's just say, imported from another country, I think from Africa. So 3 of those who have been arrested and suspected of being part of the crew who stole historical jewels worth up to $102 million from the Paris Museum last month, with the 4th a girlfriend of one of the robbers. A final member of the heist team remains at large, along with the jewels. So one guy got away, I guess. But yeah, apparently they had this ladder truck and just went right up and went right in. So anyway, I tend to think that they probably really didn't know too much about what they were doing, but they were really hyping it right at first. Saying, yes, they were definitely professionals. They knew exactly what they're doing, when it turns out they weren't professionals and they didn't know at all what they were doing. But they knew what to take, or they just grabbed everything in sight. I don't know which. So anyways, speculation that the robbers were amateurs arose after they dropped one of the most precious of the jewels, the Empress Eugenie's crown made of gold, emeralds, and diamonds. They dropped it. Yeah, they just dropped it, and it had been recovered, but it was damaged. But yeah, I mean, who needs a crown made up of gold, emeralds, and diamonds after all? I mean, who would want that? Yeah, they left their tools, they left a glove and other items at the scene after failing to set fire to the mover's truck before fleeing. So I guess they really messed up bad. Anyway, there's further information here on this article. This is DW, DW.com, and then one more from same site, Germany News. Italy avalanche kills climbers. Bodies found. The bodies of 2 more German mountaineers have been discovered following the avalanche in South Tyrol. Tyrol, Tyrol. The bodies of a German father and daughter found after the avalanche in South Tyrol. 3 other Germans were confirmed dead. South Tyrol avalanche, 2 more bodies of German climbers recovered. So, wow, did you know about the avalanche in Germany? I don't think I really knew about that. That is a DW article. DW, I think, is a German-based magazine and website. Anyway, pretty wild. Information liberation, top few articles here. Ex-Mossad head, we've booby-trapped and manipulated equipment in all countries you can imagine. Ex-Mossad head Yossi Cohen boasted during a recent podcast that Israel has booby-trapped and manipulated equipment like that used in their pager attack in Lebanon in all countries that you can imagine. So that's interesting, huh? We'll have a little bit more on that interesting article that I found in just a minute here. Next article, AIPAC begins lobbying as Taiwan as brand turns toxic in the U.S. The Israel lobby is looking for a new host. So they're going to be hitting up Taiwan, it sounds like. And then one of the big news items of the week, at least in certain parts of the social media world, Tucker Carlson interviews Nick Fuentes. Tucker Carlson and Nick Fuentes buried the hatchet and discussed the power of the Jewish lobby in America during a 2-hour-long interview released on Monday night. Yes, and you would have thought that the world was ending for some people, especially those very, very, shall we say, emboldened by the Israel lobby. Trump administration, after bailing out Argentina with $20 billion, denies FEMA aid to poor whites in Western Maryland. So that's another article here on informationliberation.com. Got a few articles from RT. Restarting the U.S. nuclear tests could take years. Yeah, that was something that came out this week. I don't know if you guys heard about this. Conducting even a symbolic detonation will require time, money, and expertise, sources have told the newspaper. Yeah, it's just nuclear bombs and nuclear tests. Why would you need time, money, and expertise with any of that? Resuming nuclear tests in the U.S. would take years and cost hundreds of millions of dollars. Aren't we supposed to have the Golden Dome, though? If we have the Golden Dome, then we don't even need nukes. We just put the Golden Dome up, and then that'll protect everybody from all the nukes that are getting ready to hit our country. Why do we even need a Golden Dome if we've never had one to this point? I wonder what's going to happen. Resuming nuclear tests in the U.S. would take years and cost hundreds of millions of dollars, the Washington Post reported on Thursday, citing experts. The Nevada test site, where the U.S. carried out its last nuclear detonation over 3 decades ago, now uses computer simulations instead of live explosives. Yes, they never do it live anymore, ever. So if you live in Nevada, just be aware. President Trump said this week that he has instructed the Department of War to start testing our nuclear weapons on an equal basis with Russia and China, declaring that preparations would begin immediately. It remains unclear whether he was referring to underground nuclear detonations, which none of the 3 nations have conducted for decades. According to this, Moscow has warned that any U.S. nuclear explosion would prompt a symmetrical response. Yes, they've been busy testing their Poseidon torpedo system recently. We've got an article on that tonight as well. The Post pointed out that if Washington were to proceed, the task would fall not to the Pentagon, but the Department of Energy, specifically the National Nuclear Security Administration, NNSA, which oversees the Nevada test site. Experts said reviving testing there would come at significant costs. Yeah, like cancer. Let's start with that one. Kind of important. Ernest Moniz, who led the Department of Energy under Obama, estimated that even a stunt explosion conducted with no regard to gathering scientific data would still take maybe a year to prepare for. Corey Henderstein, a former senior NNSA official, said the agency would need to excavate a new vertical shaft at the cost of some $100 million. Well, why don't they just go over to North Korea and use their underground testing facility, because they've been caught testing nukes underground just within the last several years because it registers as an earthquake when they do it. I reported on that myself. So anyway, pretty interesting, and I don't know, not sure if I think they're actually going to be doing nuclear tests, but who knows? It is Trump we're talking about, so I guess anything is possible. That is a RT article. I thought this one was pretty wild and highly ironic. The Nobel Peace Prize winner, we mentioned her a few weeks ago. She's the one that won instead of Donald Trump. The Nobel Peace Prize winner calls for military attack on her own country. Yes, she's the Peace Prize winner. Washington's anti-drug campaign off Venezuela's coast is the only way to oust illegitimate Nicolas Maduro. And then her name is Maria Corina Machado. That's the lady right here who won the Nobel Peace Prize. But she's now calling for Trump to go take care of her country. So I'm not sure if they're going to take the Peace Prize back now or what, but maybe they should. No, I don't know. I mean, I'm not in support of what Maduro and Venezuela is doing. But it is interesting to see that the winner of the Peace Prize is saying, yes, he needs to be taken out. I think that's a little ironic. U.S. military buildup off Venezuela's coast could help bring about regime change. Opposition figure Maria Corina Machado has said. The Nobel Peace Prize laureate said this year signaled that she would welcome U.S. strikes on the country if they helped remove Maduro. Washington has accused Maduro of having ties to drug cartels, calling him a narco-terrorist. Earlier this year, Trump deployed a naval armada to the Western Caribbean, and since September, U.S. forces have struck alleged drug smuggling vessels off Venezuela's coast. Yes, time and time again. We've seen the ships get exploded, and they're always at night, it seems like. Media reports say Washington's expanding naval presence, with analysts suggesting that the mission could extend beyond counter narcotics. Trump denied planning direct strikes inside Venezuela, but reportedly viewed a list of potential targets. So anyway, that is something that people are saying is very, very soon going to be happening as far as other strikes inside Venezuela, because they are ramping up the U.S. presence down there, at least in the surrounding waters. So it's hard to say. But she may get her wish, is what I'm saying. If so, you can blame the Nobel Peace Prize for the next attack on Venezuela. Green power bills finally come due for the UK, and Tony Blair reemerges. Yes, I wonder how they dug him up and got him, I guess, out of the mothballs and stuff. Trust the unsinkable politician fond of rebranding bombings as democracy to fix Britain's energy woes. Tony Blair is back to explain how Britain should rescue itself, bringing along a new report from his Tony Blair Institute for Global Change. That sounds so lovely. That rebrands the country's energy ambitions yet again. Once upon a time, the dream was called Clean Power 2030. Now it has been reboxed and reissued as Cheaper Power 2030. Sounds like someone stumbled out of their green stupor long enough to take a good look at the bill and gulp. Blair's Institute now says the clean mission was right for its time, but the circumstances have changed. No kidding. What did you expect when you built an energy plan out of little more than optimism and debt? Energy has shifted from being a national advantage to a growing constraint, the report warns, citing Britain's premium-grade power prices. Clean electricity is the future of UK energy unless the foundations are fixed. However, the risks are clear: higher costs, weaker reliability, lost public confidence, and a growing backlash against climate action. Sounds like Brits are tired of paying luxury rates for basic necessities. Yeah, anyway, there's further information here. And yes, Tony Blair, the perfect person to put in charge of the power in Britain if they really want things to go bad very, very quickly. He's the guy for the job. All right, and then came across this one, thought it was interesting. The website is WLTreport.com. There's a lot of ads on this, so I'll ask for forgiveness just ahead of time here because they're a little risque, some of them. So pay no attention to the ads. The truth behind President Trump's royal arch finally revealed, ? The Ark or Arch of Triumph has deep meaning. And notice how the word triumph has the word Trump within it. Okay, folks, buckle up, for this one is going to be a bit of a wild ride. A few weeks ago, President Trump randomly announced plans to build a huge new triumphal arch in D.C. in honor of America's 250th birthday. Details on that here in case you missed it. Monumental. President Trump confirms plans for a triumphal arch in honor of America's 250th birthday. President Trump has made a huge announcement in celebration of America's 250th birthday next year. Trump is planning to construct a giant new triumphal arch near the Arlington Memorial Bridge. Not much more has been said about it since this announcement, and I haven't said much about my thoughts either until now. This is the article's writer saying this, not me. But when I first heard about it, I thought, that's cool, but also kind of strange and random. I'm guessing many of you may have thought that too. But today I found something that really sheds more light on this. A big thanks to a reader for sending it to me. And then he's warning people out front that if you are a huge Donald Trump supporter, you might not like this video very much. But we'll keep going here. We'll keep pressing on. In fact, I actually kind of have my own theory about what Trump may be doing that fits in with this video, but doesn't necessarily draw the same conclusions that they do. Watch this short clip. So this has Jamie, and many of you guys know who Jamie is. Let me see here. It gets into a text-based version of what was said. I did watch the clip earlier. It says, okay, so basically the arch is a replica of the arch or Ark of Titus, which is an arch that was constructed solely to depict the Roman conquering and looting and destruction of Jerusalem. Weird. The arch was built as a monument to let the whole world know of the conquest. The Arch of Titus is an ancient Roman triumphal arch located on the Via Sacra in Rome, just southeast of the Roman Forum. Here's a detailed breakdown of its background and meaning. So it talks about the Arch of Titus. It was erected around 81 AD by the Roman Emperor Domitian, or Domitian probably, shortly after the death of his brother Emperor Titus, to commemorate Titus's victories, particularly the siege of Jerusalem in AD 70. You might have heard of it. That's when they destroyed the temple during the first Jewish-Roman War. The war ended with the destruction of the Second Temple in Jerusalem, one of the most consequential events in Jewish history. The arch served both as a political monument celebrating Roman imperial victory and power and a memorial to Titus, who was deified after his death. Design and appearance, talks about what it's made of and so forth. Relief sculptures on the inner walls depicting scenes of the triumphal procession after the fall of Jerusalem. One famous panel shows Roman soldiers carrying spoils from the temple, including the golden menorah, trumpets, and the table of showbread. So I would say, let me stop right there. I would say that is false, that stuff was not actually taken. The menorah, at least, and the table of showbread were already found. Ron Wyatt discovered them in the cave temple. They're still there. They're hidden, along with the Ark of the Covenant. Another depicts Titus riding in a triumphal chariot crowned by the goddess Victory. Inscription on the upper part, the attic, which reads, "The Senate and people of Rome dedicate this to the divine Titus Vespasian Augustus, son of the divine Vespasian." Architecturally, it's an early example of the Roman triumphal arch. I do think it's pretty interesting, and we'll see if this actually gets constructed. This might just be, one of Trump's crazy ideas that never actually materializes. But anyway, this article does talk about this quite a bit, and this video embedded here is pretty good. It's a pretty good clip of Jamie talking about exactly what that is. It says, in the video below, these guys surmise that President Trump is building the arch to honor himself, and because he views himself as a god who needs to be immortalized. And the person that wrote this says, I don't agree, but I do think the ties to the Arch of Titus is fascinating, and I do agree with them that President Trump is fully aware of the significance and meaning of that arch, and I wonder if he doesn't have something else in mind. President Trump has said that we are at war with the deep state. He even changed to the Department of War with Hegseth. President Trump is clearly on the offensive, working to completely dismantle, conquer, loot, and destroy the deep state. Of course, depends on who you ask about that one, doesn't it? So, what if this arch is being constructed in the exact same style as the Arch of Titus to commemorate President Trump's victory and, quite frankly, America's victory or coming victory over the deep state. I would say that might be a little premature, wouldn't you? Anyway, it says, that sounds really cool. And suddenly makes way more sense than President Trump waking up one day and deciding he needed to randomly build an arch. The video below is fascinating. So the first one is a clip. The one up here is a clip. Or is it right there? No. Right there. This one is just a 2-minute clip. And the other one, I think, is the full interview right here. So anyways, I think it's worth a look. And, Jamie Walden does really good work. And I agree with him on a lot of things. And even mentions Timothy Alberino in this, too. So, pretty wild. So this is some of the transcript of the talk here with Jamie Walden and the discussion about the triumphal arch of Titus. So pretty wild. That's on WLTReport.com. I came across this one and thought, okay, this is really strange. I know many people don't necessarily like Stu Peters that much. I used to. He's kind of gotten a little extreme for me personally, but you can see here where this person who claims to be a pastor has basically been stalking Stu Peters. And I think that is no good. That's no good. Zionist pastor booked on felony charges after targeting Stu Peters. A radical Zionist pastor has been arrested and booked on felony charges after allegedly stalking and harassing nationally syndicated TV news host Stu Peters for a period of roughly 3 years, culminating in an unhinged, caught-on-video attack on Peters' property that has Pastor Michael Montgomery facing charges of first-degree criminal damage to property. So this is him here, Pastor Michael. The press release issued by the Stu Peters Network details the arrest follows a prolonged campaign of harassment and intimidation directed at prominent conservative commentator Stu Peters, stemming from Montgomery's apparent outrage over Peters's public criticisms of Israeli foreign policy and Jewish influence in American politics, of which I don't really disagree, but that's like all he talks about. And I would disagree just from the standpoint of the problems presented by Israel and the Jews aren't the only problem in the world. And I feel like what I've heard of Stu anyway, that's kind of how it comes across. According to eyewitness accounts and police reports, the press release goes on, Montgomery engaged in a pattern of escalating behavior against Stu Peters, including stalking the commentator at his private residence, publicly berating him in front of his children, Stu's children, I guess, and repeatedly vandalizing Stu's property. Notably, he allegedly targeted Peters' boat on multiple occasions, defacing it with eggs in a blatant act of property damage. Yeah, and I would add, and a waste of eggs. Surveillance footage recorded on board Stu Peters' boat shows a man who appears to be Montgomery repeatedly hurling eggs at the docked vessel, at one point nearly striking the security camera itself. That egging was just the latest in a string of them, have caused thousands of dollars worth of damage to Peters' property. So see for yourself, security cameras, still shots of the boat egging are attached below. Video footage is available here. Yeah, this is a link from Real Stu Peters on X. So there is the full video here if you want to watch it. But you can see from the boat here, this is the guy throwing the eggs, I guess. Despite the mountain of evidence pointing to Montgomery's guilt, the court system in Goodhue County, Minnesota, has decided to release him without bond, according to court documents obtained by the Stu Peters Network. Under the conditions of his release, Montgomery may not be arrested. He must make all future court appearances related to his ongoing case and may have no contact with Stu Peters or the Peters family. I'm sure he'll keep his side of the bargain up, don't you? As mentioned both in this report and cited in the press release, the boat incident is far from the first time Montgomery has lashed out at Peters. Instead of egging of Peters' boat was just the latest chapter in a long story of bizarre and dangerous behavior. So it goes back a ways, and this confrontation here at the gas station, I did watch that, and you can see that Stu was very familiar with this guy, and in fact knew him by name and knew him by the church right here, Montgomery, at his Calvary Chapel Church of Red Wing, Minnesota. So, radical Zionist, it says. So, there's a shot there of the good pastor. So, anyways, I just thought that was pretty bizarre. So, yes, an evangelical pastor going after a political commentator because he doesn't like his opinion and thinks he better shut up or else, apparently. So, anyway, very strange. So, that's actually on stewpeters.com if you guys want to look at that, but very strange. All right. Next article. I thought this one was an interesting concept. I wasn't sure where it was going exactly, but it's a Wise Wolf on Substack. We have looked at their Substack about every week for the last few weeks. This is yet a new article, another one, Millennial Reign, what a Christian government would actually look like. Chances are you won't like it. So this is showing Republican or Democrat, both sides are filled with Satan's puppets. It says editorial disclaimer, this article interprets Scripture literally. Every claim is backed by direct biblical quotation. I'm not adding spin or clever theology. I'm reading what Jesus said and taking him at his word. If this offends you and you claim to be a Christian, maybe you need to reevaluate your faith, not my faith, for writing this, yours, in rejecting it. So I thought that was very well said, and let's see where he's going here with this. Most self-identified Christians would despise living under the government Jesus described. They would call it radical, dangerous, and unrealistic. They'd scream about handouts and government overreach. They'd build walls higher, turn away more strangers, demand harsher sentences and bigger defense budgets. They'd vote against every policy Christ explicitly commanded. That's not speculation. That's what's happening right now. The question isn't whether America is a Christian nation. The question is whether most Christians would recognize Christ's teaching if they showed up on a policy platform. Based on voting patterns and polling data, the answer is no. So let's run the experiment. What would government look like during the millennial reign when Christ actually rules? Not the fantasy version where everyone speaks English and drives pickups to megachurches. The version described in Scripture, the one that makes both parties squirm. One more thing before we dive in. It's not about Republicans or Democrats, not about left versus right, liberal versus conservative. Those are human political categories. Christ's authority is cosmic, not political. His kingdom operates on principles that don't fit neatly into any modern ideology. If you're trying to map this onto your preferred political party, you're missing the point. The kingdom of God makes everyone uncomfortable because it demands we surrender our tribal loyalties and actually follow what Jesus said. How about that? The first section here, I can't read all of this article, obviously. You guys can if you want. Sell everything and give it to the poor, ? And then it's showing the top 10 richest people, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, and so on. So that is the first section here. But what about if you don't work, you don't eat? Someone always brings up 2 Thessalonians 3:10. If anyone is not willing to work, let him not eat. They use it to justify cutting food stamps, opposing welfare, letting people starve. Context matters. It talks about Paul and where the context came from. Welcome the stranger or go to hell. This one's not complicated. Scripture is unambiguous. That's the next section here. Let's see. Forgive 77 times. The criminal justice system under Christ's reign would horrify anyone demanding tougher sentences and harsher penalties. But protect the victims. Here's where we need to be sensible. Mercy doesn't mean abandoning justice for victims. Christ's entire ministry focused on protecting the vulnerable. When he saw people harming others, he intervened. When he encountered those exploiting the weak, he drove them out with a whip. The problem with modern justice isn't that we're too merciful, it's that it's inverted, completely backwards. So this is the young girl that I mentioned earlier tonight. In Dundee, Scotland, a 14-year-old girl was arrested for threatening a 21-year-old Bulgarian immigrant who had been sexually harassing her for months. Remember that? Yeah, the problem with modern justice isn't that it's too merciful, it's that it's inverted, completely backwards. In parts of Europe right now, people serve jail time for social media posts, for saying offensive things, for hurting feelings. Meanwhile, documented cases exist of violent criminals, including rapists, receiving suspended sentences or minimal time because prosecutors want to appear culturally sensitive or progressive. That's not mercy, that's perversion of justice. Biblical justice is simple. If you harm another person directly, there are consequences. Rape, assault, abuse, violence against the vulnerable. These demand justice for the victim. Whoever causes one of these little ones who believe in me to sin, it would be better for him to have a great millstone fastened around his neck and be drowned in the depth of the sea. Matthew 18:6. Jesus didn't mince words about harming the innocent. But drug possession, theft born of desperation, victimless crimes, these call for restoration, not incarceration. In speech, no matter how offensive, if your brother sins against you, go and tell him his fault between you and him alone. Matthew 18:15. Work it out. Forgive. Move on. Don't throw people in cages for words. So I thought that was all really good. Heal the sick without payment. Turn the other cheek. So there's a lot of sections here. Do you feed the hungry? The politicians who'd crucify him again? And then nearing the end here, it says, they killed him for disrupting their comfortable arrangement with power. The millennial reign nobody is ready for. So what does Christ's 1,000-year reign actually look like? Uncomfortable, radically redistributive, welcoming to an almost reckless degree, merciful beyond recognition, peaceful when violence seems necessary, generous when scarcity seems prudent. The rich lose their wealth, not as punishment, but as liberation from what Christ called their greatest spiritual danger. The poor receive not charity, but justice. No handouts, but what was always theirs. Debt vanishes every few decades. Interest-free loans flow freely. Borders functionally disappear. Foreigners are neighbors. Refugees are welcomed. The stranger is invited in, no questions asked. Prisons transform or empty out. Punishment gives way to restoration. Execution becomes unthinkable. Mercy isn't weakness, it's law. Healthcare is universal and free. Education is universal and free. Basic needs are met before luxury is allowed. No one suffers lack while others accumulate excess. Military budgets shrink to almost nothing. Defense becomes actual defense, not offense. Enemies are loved, not bombed. Peacemaking becomes the highest form of patriotism. And leadership looks like service. The greatest become the least. Power corrupts itself out of existence. Pride has no place. Humility is policy. This terrifies most Christians because it's the opposite of what they've been taught Christianity means. They've been sold a Jesus who loves America, capitalism, and strong borders. A Jesus who rewards hard work with wealth and punishes poverty as moral failure. A Jesus who demands others live righteously while tolerating their own comfort and excess. That Jesus doesn't exist. He never did. What are you actually worshiping? You can't claim Christianity while opposing what Christ taught. You can call yourself whatever you want, but words mean things. Christian means follower of Christ. If you're following political demagogues, economic self-interest, and cultural comfort instead of Jesus' actual commands, you're following something else. That's okay. You can choose that, but don't call it Christianity. Don't quote the Bible while voting against the poor. Don't invoke Jesus while turning away strangers. Don't claim faith while demanding vengeance. Don't preach the gospel while hoarding wealth. And if you're not ready to live under government that Jesus described, if that vision horrifies you, if you'd vote against it in a heartbeat, then ask yourself, what am I actually worshiping? Because it isn't Christ. The millennial reign is coming. According to believers, Christ will rule. His policies will be law. His economics will be reality. His justice system will be in place. His immigration policy will be enforced. Are you ready for that? Or would you, like the Pharisees before you, find a way to crucify him all over again? So I thought that was really interesting. It goes on. There's more here. But that's on Wise Wolf Media on their Substack post. And I thought that was really well written. And it definitely gives you something to think about, for sure. If you look at the timeline that I have often referred to, this is kind of what we're talking about here. This purple area right here. Hopefully you can see it. Right after Jesus' return, the battle at Armageddon, Satan defeated and thrown into the pit for 1,000 years, right? The beast and the false prophet thrown into the lake of fire, and the rapture, also called the gathering, where Christians who are still on earth fly away. And that is at the time of Jesus' return, and then the millennial reign of Christ for 1,000 years, before the great white throne judgment, and then everything else that happens at the end of times, and then new earth. So I thought that was all kind of interesting and worth imparting the information to you guys, just so you guys could have a look at that. And I thought it made a lot of sense. Yeah, Wise Wolf Media. It's a very good Substack, so I would highly recommend them. Again, we've mentioned their articles often on this show. So for my Indiana friends out there, nearly 150 illegal alien truckers arrested on Indiana highways. Indiana State Police joined the feds for a major crackdown on highways leading into sanctuary state Illinois. More than 140 illegal aliens were recently caught operating tractor trailers in Indiana. 140. Man. Department of Homeland Security revealed shocking results of targeted enforcement that took place in northwest Indiana as part of Operation Midway Blitz, which was launched in the neighboring sanctuary state of Illinois in early September. 146 big rig operators were operating illegally. So how about that? That one's on InfoWars. And let's see. This is one that I just thought I would mention. I vaguely mentioned it earlier as far as Tucker Carlson, but yes, after he did that interview with Nick Fuentes last week, people are calling for him to be, I kid you not, done away with. And this guy is one of them, kind of contributing to that whole idea. MAGA lawmaker calls Tucker Carlson the most dangerous anti-Semite in America. Note this guy's little beanie he has on his head. Rep. Randy Fine, which we've shown pictures of him, full body shots of him before. He looks exactly like whatever her name is, the giant blueberry girl in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, Willy Wonka's movie. Randy Fine had harsh words for former Fox News host Tucker Carlson while discussing anti-Semitism in the GOP before an audience with the American Jewish Coalition on Saturday. Yes, note the small hat. The tiny hat. Carlson recently hosted white nationalist Nick Fuentes on his podcast, white nationalists. That's funny. If you guys have ever heard Nick talk, he doesn't talk about white nationalism, drawing rebukes from Republicans like Ted Cruz and Mitch McConnell. So Mitch McConnell and Ted Cruz, they definitely have their Israel connections, don't they? It's easy to talk about anti-Semitism on the left, Randy Fine said. I want to talk about the dark force, rising on our side. Multiple speakers have talked about the rise of anti-Semitism on the right, but it's not enough to speak in platitudes or generalities, but about the fight. We must call evil by its name. So if you disagree with Israel, you're evil. That's what Randy Fine says. And Tucker is not MAGA, according to Randy Fine. So Randy apparently is. Okay. This is more about the whole Tucker Carlson thing. Newsweek editor receives backlash for suggesting Tucker Carlson should be neutralized. So that's where we are now, saying people should be taken out publicly just because you disagree with them and their stance on Israel. So lovely, huh? Lovely, yes. Newsweek editor, senior editor at large, Josh Hammer, a name that you might have heard a few times lately, received backlash on Wednesday for writing an article that suggested Tucker Carlson should be neutralized to protect the Republican Party. No, to protect Israel. That's what he really means. In an article for the Daily Mail, Hammer criticized Carlson for interviewing controversial right-wing commentator Nick Fuentes this week, accusing the former Fox News host of laundering Fuentes' repugnant beliefs, quote-unquote, and a waging of war on the forces of civilizational sanity on the MAGA right. Whatever. So, totally insane. Looking to see if there's any pictures of Josh Hammer, who is always out there promoting his book, but I don't see any pictures of him. So, yes, he's calling for Tucker to be neutralized, which, of course, is a military term, which means the same thing as to 86. Somebody might have heard that recently. The whole 86-47 phenomenon. Well, he's calling for Tucker to be 86th, unfortunately. But yes, he's a threat to Israel, not MAGA, or not the U.S. So how about that? All right, so this is a follow-up on the huge bomb factory that blew up in Tennessee, not too far from where I am sitting, actually. Investigators identify origin of massive Tennessee bomb factory blast. So let's look at this, and then we've got one more here article that kind of ties this potentially to Charlie Kirk. So figure that one out. Investigators from the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms have identified the area of origin of a massive fatal blast that took place at a Tennessee bomb-making plant at the beginning of October. Yes, actually it was on October 10th. We reported on it and showed you some before and after pictures and things like that a few weeks back. Last week, defense experts warned the explosion could have a severe impact on military supply chains, which are already under severe strain because of the wars in Ukraine and Gaza. Remember, we talked about at the time, we said, very interesting on the timing and the whole Israel and Ukraine wars that are happening. So they've identified the area of origin. The explosion took place at the Accurate Energetics System facility in Bucksnort, about 90 miles west of Nashville. Bucksnort is an area not too far from here. I think it was Dixon, technically. It says 16 people were killed. So that is the final number. I think there were maybe 19 people earlier that were being reported as either killed or missing, but 16 people were killed. And the factory was destroyed along with large quantities of munitions. Residents over 20 miles away from the facility reported hearing the explosion. We did not, but we're probably further than that away. Footage posted on social media showed widespread devastation. And then this is one of the tweets with the up close look here at the Tennessee bomb factory explosion. So I'm looking to see, it says the building contained a mezzanine level with 6 melting kettles, and the main floor contained at least 3 production kettles. Between 24,000 and 28,000 pounds of explosives detonated during the explosion. 24 and 28,000 pounds. Wow. Although the investigators say they've identified the area where the explosion took place, they did not announce an official cause and refused to speculate about it. I wonder why. The next phase of the investigation will attempt to determine the cause. Yeah, and I wonder if we'll ever hear what that is. I don't know. Just an honest question. Next phase of this investigation happens at ATF labs and testing facilities where the evidence collected from the scene will be analyzed, examined, and tested. All on-site examinations have been concluded and the site has been handed back to AES. Yes, and they literally just have a charred piece of ground now. That's all that's left, and maybe the sign out front. That's about it. It's just not even a parking lot anymore. So, all that to say this. Another article I came across, take from it what you will. It's worth just sort of, refreshing your memory on the whole Tennessee bomb factory thing. And this guy is saying there might be a connection between that and Mr. Charlie Kirk. Okay. If you're a regular reader here, you will have noticed that I have refrained from much public commentary on the sad assassination of Mr. Charlie Kirk last month. This is written October 27th by, I don't know, what's this guy's name? Not sure. Anyway, it's the website called Giza Death Star. So that's the website. He says, I've refrained from much public commentary on the assassination of Charlie. My reason for doing so, rather not doing so, are basically twofold. Firstly, I don't think or feel extended comment or analysis was courteous. He, his family, friends, followers deserve some privacy to grieve and process the whole thing. But secondly, it quickly became clear that the story began to be unfolded. There were massive problems with the narrative, quote unquote. Planes were taking off from local airports under very suspicious circumstances. The alleged assassin supposedly pulled off a feat of marksmanship worthy of magic bullets. Misaligned telescopic sights on World War II Italian bolt-action rifles and Marine veterans who spent time in the Soviet Union and married the daughter of a colonel of Soviet military intelligence. Some witnesses were not so sure that the shots even came from the roof of the college building, while videos of the event surfaced strongly, suggesting that the kill shot came from behind the victim, which I don't know that I agree with that, but while in both cases the security seemed to have been inadequate and stripped from the intended victim. Says the parallels, when one gets right down to it, are uncanny and profoundly disturbing. He's talking about the parallels between Charlie's assassination and JFK's assassination. That's the emphasis here. Says then there was this seemingly unrelated story of an explosion of a munitions plant in Tennessee. And then that's a link to the investigators identify origin of massive Tennessee bomb factory blast, the one that we just looked at right before this. Note the following points. The name of the affected firm is AES, Accurate Energetic Systems, and sadly, the entire factory was destroyed and 16 people died in the explosion. Talks about where it was, 90 minutes west of Nashville on October the 10th. 16, which was exactly a month after Charlie was killed, by the way. 16 people were killed. The factory was destroyed. As to what caused the explosion, the ATF is presently not saying, noting that up to 28,000 pounds of explosives were detonated. And it goes on and talks about some more details here. Says these points led me to previously speculate that perhaps this event was an act of ongoing covert hot war being waged between the U.S. and its geopolitical rivals. After all, this website covered a series of similar explosions in Russian, Chinese, French, British, and German facilities in years past, and speculated they were perhaps the result of covert operations. As a simple search for the blogs on this website search engine will reveal. Usually I accompanied these early munitions plant explosions with a warning. Covert operations are a game two can play. That was the warning. Try to warn the insane leadership of the West that if they were indeed involved in sanctioning covert sabotage of rival ammunition plants and other facilities, they could expect retaliation. But in this case, the story has emerged that there might be an entirely different connection to the Tennessee munitions plant explosion, Mr. Kirk's assassination. There is much in this article to ponder. For example, problems with the emerging official narrative, which we've already mentioned. So that goes into some of this here that's on the screen. Let's see. Talking about how he rejected the official story. Other than getting into the timing of the munitions plant explosion relative to Mr. Kirk's death, wrong. The two events occurred exactly a month apart, but Mr. Kirk was murdered first on September 10th, and then the plant exploded on October 10th. This article makes the astonishing assertion that the company's specialty was miniaturized explosive devices such as pagers and cell phones that can be detonated remotely at the push of a button. It does not take a great leap of the imagination to see that a small lapel microphone could be made to fire a close-range projectile, and with great close-range accuracy. They are, after all, fixed to the lapel of the intended target, and thus can be aligned to the target. If so, then the explosion of the munitions factory follows the pattern in evidence in Utah: destruction of the crime scene and therefore the evidence. Remember, they paved it over. Elimination of witnesses, the employees at the plant, selection of a patsy, and so on. So he's talking about the 16 people at the plant who died. While at a glance, the company's website suggests that it would have been capable of fabricating such a device, I do not think it was involved at all, except in a very tenuous way, as far as the probably in the case. It provided the perpetrators with the talent pool of expert consultation necessary for someone else to fabricate such a miniature demolition device. Indeed, it seems highly unlikely that the company itself would be involved in a one-off production of a exploding lapel microphone, sort of one-shot Derringer contraption, but through the company's name, after all, Accurate Energetic Systems, quote-unquote. In any case, some employee or employees might have had the expertise to do so under a private contract. So anyway, what he's saying here is that perhaps they were tied to small explosive devices, like the whole microphone idea. I personally don't really buy that it was a microphone that did it. I know some people were out there saying it, including Stu Peters, who we mentioned earlier in the show tonight. But I don't think that's what it was. I think it was probably a smaller caliber bullet at closer range, or at least at a different location. Personally, that's what I think. But I guess, as he says here, time will tell. Of course, if any of this is high-octane speculation, which in my opinion it probably is, gains more traction as more information emerges. But the implications are very clear. If the speculation is to be true, deep and covert expertise and sophisticated secret planning was involved. And the players themselves are broad and extensive, with the ability to literally eliminate not just one, but two potential crime scenes. And small explosive devices and cell phones, ? Well, that too has been tried, and I suspect every reader here knows who did that. So, yes, and they have been very vocal in saying that they did it, and in fact, Netanyahu himself gave Trump a little present. Remember the golden pager? Remember that? Yeah, so they are very much in tune with this whole idea. and in fact has used this technology. Now, did they in Charlie's murder? He's sort of bringing that up here in this article, and it seems somewhat believable. However, to me, I don't think it was an exploding microphone, but it is interesting that the connection there between Charlie dying on September 10th and the bomb factory being exploded on October 10th, that they may be connected somehow, possibly through Israel, possibly some other way. We don't know. But that is pretty wild. Anyway, that website is called Giza, as in Pyramid of Giza, Death Star. Giza, DeathStar.com. Weird. Okay. Speaking of which, came across this one. This is more evidence here. Former Mossad chief Cohen planted devices like the exploding Hezbollah pagers are in, quote, every country you can imagine. Every country you can imagine. Former Mossad director Cohen has offered an account of his agency's global intelligence operations, revealing that the widely publicized sabotage of Hezbollah's communications infrastructure in September of 2024 is only part of a far broader espionage campaign. So he's saying that these things are everywhere. I wonder if they're in our own possessions. Do you suppose? Is it going to make you look at your cell phone differently maybe than you did ever before? It does make one wonder, doesn't it? Anyway, this is further information about what he's talking about. So again, we'll link to these articles in the Substack post, so make sure you're on the list if you're not already. Would send you the email out probably on Tuesday that will have all of the article links that we talk about tonight. We're only about halfway through, so we got a little ways to go. I'll try and pick up the pace here. Okay. Holy Shiite Adam, a Texas man, was swatted yesterday and had the Texas DPS and Bell County Sheriff's Office show up at his home over his online remarks about Israel. At 1:40, the officer tells Adam, "We're here because of the comments you made online about Israel," quote unquote. If you had any doubt, the officer literally tells him that. Says, here's the video of the encounter. So this is the guy's, I guess, ring camera. So anyways, it has started. Remember, not necessarily for the Israel thing, but just criticizing the illegals over in the UK gets you a visit and gets you arrested. So are we starting that already over here? That's what it appears, doesn't it? So feel free to have a look at this if you want. He basically tells them they have no cause to be there. They have no warrant and to leave immediately. And they did. So that tells me that these officers knew they were in the wrong. We're here because of the comments you made online about Israel, the police officer says, which means you and I could get a visit too. Isn't that lovely? Breaking: blacks now threatening to eat white people if their SNAP and EBT benefits end. Yeah, this demon here says they're threatening to eat white people if the SNAP ends. As of November 1st, millions of EBT welfare recipients are about to be missing the food stamp payouts. And even says could spark civil unrest and even cannibalism. So that is insane. We are definitely living in the end times. We're talking about cannibalism now because people don't get their government benefits. Lovely. All right, Dr. Anna. Some people just call her Dr. Anna, but I think it's Mahalsia. Privacy is history. Smart Big Brother is watching you. Your vacuum, refrigerator, TV, phone, and everything else smart is spying on you, can be weaponized with a single line of code. Many of us already know this, but I didn't necessarily know it was in your vacuum cleaner, but that's why it's best to have a dumb vacuum cleaner or a dumb refrigerator. But most people, don't really want that stuff, but I could see where, it's important to mention this stuff because people don't think about it when they buy the latest gadget, whatever that might be. So interesting that she's mentioning the CV-19 bioweapons shedding and geoengineering here in this article. Wow. I won't get into this one too much, but there's a lot here. Is my smart fridge spying on me? A deep dive into privacy risks, which, of course, that is absolutely going on. Is your smart toaster spying on you? So it goes on and on here. Alarming new system can identify people through walls using Wi-Fi signals. Google's digital fingerprinting, how to stop it on your iPhone. A review of the weaponization of Internet of Things. Security threats and countermeasures. So this is a pretty long article. Certainly worth a look. And this image kind of sums things up pretty nicely. Many people do not believe that surveillance under the skin via self-assembly nanotechnology exists, and the United States is a full-blown Orwellian surveillance state that tracks and traces your every move through corporations that are in service of the technocratic transhumanist agenda. They also do not believe that the Internet of Things technology can be weaponized. In this post, I linked multiple articles that show how advanced the surveillance is and that every device in your home and workplace is keeping tabs on you. Not only that, but any of your devices are dual-purpose weapons. Your refrigerator or your toaster can be hacked and send a life-ending frequency into your intra-body area network, the W-band, we've talked about that before on the show, that was implanted in you via the CV-19 bioweapons shedding, for most people watching and listening to this show, shedding and geoengineering, which we all have to breathe, don't we? AI is surveilling and collecting this data from the metaverse, and it's ultimately geared to have absolute control over the population. In the name of convenience, we are living 1984 right now, and it will become ever more visible as the AI rise will continue. Privacy is a thing of the past already. Why would people not believe that the technocrats like you, well, I think she says it wrong here, Noah Yuval Harari, Noah Yuval Harari, are absolutely serious when proclaiming that the soul of the spirit of humans are a thing of the past, quote unquote. When you manipulate free will through biometric surveillance and bidirectional telemetry manipulation subliminally, you effectively undermine free will, the hallmark of our soul and spirit's being. Having the convenience of anything smart equals AI comes at a great cost. Yuval Noah Harari is the guy's name. So she got that slightly inverted a little bit. Anyways, pretty interesting article, and something we talk about a lot on the show. Clearly, that's where it's headed. Clearly, whether it's 6G being deployed that really activates this system or what, I'm a little fuzzy on that, but the system is definitely being built out. You can call it the beast system because that's literally what it is. So, pretty wild. Discern report, came across this one. It's kind of similar idea here. We have legitimate concerns about the rise of AI dependency. AI is infiltrating every corner of our daily lives, from smart assistants dictating our schedules to algorithms curating our news feeds. It's time to pause and reflect. The rapid adoption of AI technologies promises efficiency, innovation, and convenience, but at what cost? As we become increasingly reliant on these systems, legitimate concerns emerge about the erosion of human autonomy, privacy, and even our societal values. This isn't about rejecting progress outright. It's about safeguarding what makes us fundamentally human in a world that's racing towards digital dependence. As more Americans turn to AI to do their tasks, will they fill their free time with beneficial endeavors, or will the vast majority simply do less and accomplish nothing without assistance? So that's a good question. First, let's consider the impact of personal freedom and decision-making. AI systems are designed to predict, suggest, and sometimes even decide for us. Think about how recommendation engines on streaming services or social media platforms shape our tastes and opinions, while this might seem harmless, it subtly nudges us into echo chambers, limiting exposure to diverse viewpoints and fostering division. We might lose the ability to think critically. Yeah. Continuing to use AI. So anyway, that is a Discern Report article, and I thought that was worth mentioning to you guys in case you want to check it out. DiscernReport.com is where that one is. Let's see, and then this one from Slay News. Canada's central bank warns citizens to prepare for a lower standard of living, coming from yet another Commonwealth country. Under the King Charles leadership, Canadians were hit with another gut punch this week after the Bank of Canada Governor Tiff Macklem, or Macklem, I don't know how you pronounce it, but admitted the country's economy is deteriorating and warned citizens to prepare for a lower standard of living, quote unquote. During a Wednesday update, Macklem also slashed Canada's interest rate to 2.25%. The central bank chief effectively told working families that the days of prosperity are over. Wow. What's most concerning is, unless we change some things, our standard of living as a country, as Canadians, is going to be lower than it otherwise would have been, he told reporters. So this is the head of the Canadian Central Bank saying this. Could you imagine if that same announcement was made in the U.S.? Well, it almost has been, because it's just been announced in Canada. Again, under the shared leadership of King Charles III. Something to keep in mind. A name that just keeps coming up, doesn't it? Trump's Surgeon General nominee goes into labor and delays the hearing. I thought this was kind of ironic and silly. Dr. Casey Means was supposed to answer questions from members of the Senate Health Committee as part of a confirmation hearing on Thursday, but had to postpone because she went into labor with her first child. Okay, what does the Surgeon General do? What are Means' qualifications? Who does she advocate for? What has been the reaction to her nomination, and so on. So there's more information here about Dr. Casey Means right here, but I thought that was highly funny and highly, I guess you could say a little ironic too, that the Surgeon General goes into labor and can't be bothered. Oh well. And then, let's see, Google signs historic settlement with Texas. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton announced Friday that Google has signed a $1.4 billion settlement agreement with Texas over 2 lawsuits. Lawsuits allege that Google unlawfully tracked and collected users' private data, including geolocation data and the contents of incognito searches. You've probably seen that before on your browser. You can do a private search, I think it's called, on Firefox, or an incognito search on Chrome. Well, it turns out it wasn't exactly incognito. Along with biometric data that was collected. The state also accused Google of using deceptive trade practices. Google agreed to the settlement last May, making it the biggest settlement of its kind to date. So I think it's interesting. I mean, why just Texas? Why shouldn't all states sue Google for the same exact? Because, you know, if they're doing it in Texas, they're doing it everywhere, literally. What were Google's alleged legal violations? The first lawsuit argued that the company misled Texans by continuing to track their location even when users had disabled the location history. Google then used the data to tailor advertisements for consumers, according to the state. Yep, that's what they do. The second lawsuit alleged that Google illegally collected millions of biometric identifiers, including voice prints and records of face geometry through products like Google Photos, Google Assistant, and Nest Hub Max. So, wow. What'd I say? $1.4 billion settlement. And Google says, don't be evil. They're already evil. LeoHoman.com roundup. Trump preparing to strike Venezuela, readies rapid military reaction force for deployment to U.S. cities as King Charles strips brother Andrew of all royal privileges and Putin Trump engage in tit-for-tat nuclear saber rattling. Yes, isn't that lovely? A new U.S.-instigated foreign war is apparently imminent, incoming from the peace president, who promised to end such global adventurism. The Trump administration is reportedly preparing to strike military installations in Venezuela, targeting facilities linked to alleged drug trafficking and the Soles, S-O-L-E-S, cartel, with potential strikes expected within hours or days, according to multiple press reports. This is dated Friday. Yeah, hasn't happened yet. Some people were saying, I think it was Hal, actually, Hal Turner was saying, well, they won't do it until the new moon, which I guess, because it would be dark or whatever, instead of a full moon. So I don't know if that really has anything to do with it. If that's the case, then I think it could be a few days or weeks off. But yeah, everybody's saying it's going to happen very soon. So who knows? Trump prepares imminent military strike on Venezuela while readying rapid military reaction force for deployment to U.S. cities. More foreign escapades incoming from the peace president. Could we be under soft martial law by year's end? I don't know. Anyway, this is his Substack, Leo's Substack, leohoman.substack.com. And then this one, mentioned this just briefly earlier, as far as what Russia was doing. Russia completes successful test launch of long-anticipated nuclear-powered underwater Poseidon torpedo drone. Mystery weapon has been talked about since 2018, but Putin chooses to bring it out of the shadows now that his country is under siege, both economically and militarily. Yes, and also everybody talking about nuclear things, like bringing back the nuclear test program in the U.S. and so forth. Very interesting. Several Russian news outlets are reporting today that Russia has successfully tested its nuclear-powered underwater Poseidon drone. Russian President Putin is the source for the story. He apparently spoke Tuesday at a military hospital in Moscow, where he spoke with veterans of the Russia-Ukraine war and gave new details about the Russia nuclear-powered cruise missile tested earlier this week, along with dropping another bombshell report about the Poseidon test launch. The development of the massive torpedo-shaped nuclear-capable drone was first announced in 2018, but it has been shrouded in mystery ever since. Putin says, this is the English version of what he said, for the first time we succeeded not only in launching it from a carrier submarine using a booster engine, but also in starting its nuclear power unit, which propelled the drone for a certain amount of time. The device is unrivaled by any other weapon anywhere in the world when it comes to speed and depth. And Putin said, adding that the analogous weapon is unlikely to be fielded by any other nation soon. So nobody else is going to have one, is what he's saying. The power of Poseidon greatly surpasses the characteristics of Russia's upcoming Sarmat intercontinental ballistic missile, Putin stated, apparently referring to the yield of its nuclear payload. Poseidon is essentially a nuclear-powered torpedo carrying a nuclear warhead. It can travel thousands of kilometers underwater. On the final leg, reportedly reaches speeds of 120 kilometers per hour, can operate at underwater depths of a kilometer, can target enemy carrier strike groups and naval bases. Yes, and when it explodes, it doesn't really say that here, but when it explodes underwater, it creates a massive nuclear tidal wave that washes over whatever is directly above it, like entire cities. Lovely, huh? Natural news. Russia tests unstoppable Poseidon nuclear torpedo capable of triggering radioactive tsunamis. Just what we need. But it's not the end times. No, not at all. Russian President Putin announced it was successful in the test of the Poseidon nuclear-powered underwater drone. So anyway, more information here on Natural News. And here's a video here about it and how it works, showing an example. They're saying they tested it, but I don't think they actually exploded it over any cities or anything. I think we'd have heard about that one. So, yeah, they've tested it, but I don't know to what degree. Very interesting. And then wine press, rumors of war. Trump orders military to test nuclear weapons. The first test in 33 years. 33, you say? Of course it is. It's all a big peekaboo for Halloween in honor of their high Black Sabbath and Samhain. So, yes, of course, 33 years. Just what we thought. The specter of nuclear war was raised this week after Trump announced that he directed the Department of War to perform tests on its nuclear weapons for the first such test in the last 33 years. So it's always 33. Wasn't 32. Wasn't 34. So that's apparently a message to somebody somewhere. I don't know. Anyway, that's a Wine Press article on their Substack. And let's see. House Speaker Mike Johnson blasts Democrats over government shutdown, also strongly defends Trump's policy of the drug boat strikes down in the Caribbean. So, not that surprising, I guess. Talked about Trump's policy of striking drug boats in the ocean as a means to make the U.S. a safer place. Yes. Because we all know that those drug boats were coming here to kill Americans. I mean, that's what we're told, but who knows? There's no judge, no jury. They just explode them. They just blow them up, and we're supposed to believe what they tell us. Which, you know, maybe they really were bad guys. I don't know. So that is what this particular article on Gateway Pundit is about. A couple more from the same site. UK dystopia, mass stabbing in train sees at least 10 people wounded at Huntingdon. Police now say it was not a terrorist attack. 2 suspects in custody. Yeah, it wasn't a terrorist, not at all. He was just out enjoying probably, I don't know, maybe a birthday party or something like that, and he decided to go on a rampage and start stabbing people. But as long as you kept smiling while you're being stabbed and gutted, you're going to be fine. And they were screaming Allah Akbar the whole time, went on stabbing spree, reportedly left 10 people wounded, 2 of them fighting for their lives. But it was just a big party. They had a lot of fun. And watch, these guys that did this will probably be out of jail very, very soon. Because it is the UK we're talking about. What a joke. Again, vigilante justice coming soon to the UK. I firmly believe that. Because that's all the people there, the good citizens of the United Kingdom, that's all they have left. Watch, Uber CEO predicts all cars could be autonomous in 20 years. Driving reduced to a hobby like horseback riding. Probably heard of that, right? Riding a horse. Well, driving a car will just be a hobby in 20 years. Folks, I don't think we'll be here in 20 years, do you? In an unsettling prediction that could spell the end of personal freedom behind the wheel, Uber CEO, however you say his name, Dara, has declared that within 20 plus years, every car on the road will be fully autonomous, with human driving becoming a rare pastime similar to horseback riding today. I don't think he's wrong about that, but I don't think it'll take 20 years. First of all, I don't think we have 20 years, but I don't think what he's describing will take 20 years. It's already happening now. We're seeing it now. And it's being rolled out now. I don't know why he says 20 years. I think he's just saying that so that people don't get all upset. But I'm telling you, it's going to be way less than 20 years. All right, then this one. Shock video, man carjacked, robbed at gunpoint while trick-or-treating with his kid in Chicago. So welcome to Chicago. There's no violence in Chicago, according to the mayor of Chicago, Governor Pritzker, I guess. It's the governor of Illinois, and the mayor too. There's no violence. It's all our imaginations. A trio of armed carjackers targeted a man. Here, I'll just play this. There's nothing to hear. You can see the guy getting out of his car here with his kid. They're going to go trick-or-treating, and they have to stop at this fence because they can't get through. Trio of armed carjackers targeted a man and child who were out trick-or-treating in broad daylight in Chicago this weekend. Yeah, they go out in the broad daylight where it's nice and safe in Chicago, except until the guy runs up on you with a gun and your little girl standing there. Harrowing incident unfolded just after 3 p.m. on Friday afternoon in Bridgeport neighborhood in the Windy City. Security footage obtained by CWB Chicago shows a 42-year-old man parking a Mazda SUV and then helping a young girl exit the vehicle. And she's just standing here watching her father get accosted, or her, I don't know, guardian or father, I don't know. As they approach the gate of a nearby home, a black male can be seen sprinting out of a nearby alley and pointing a gun at the man's head. Suspect then pistol whips the man, and the girl watches from feet away. And then they take his car and go. They take his car and drive off. So I guess if you drive a Mazda, watch out. They like Mazdas. Mazda CX-5. But here's the governor. He says, don't worry, we'll catch him. And that's the first time anything like that has ever happened in Chicago. No, I'm just joking. But he might as well say that because that's what he basically says whenever he's being interviewed. U.S. amassing 16,000 troops off Venezuelan coast. But nothing's about to happen. So don't worry about it. American forces in the area reportedly include 8 Navy ships, a special operations vessel, and a nuclear-powered submarine. 10,000 soldiers, 6,000 sailors, but nothing's about to happen. They're not going to go in and take the oil or take anything else. They're not going to go in and, take out the Maduro regime and replace them with CIA assets and puppets with the new government. They're not going to do that. They wouldn't do that. I mean, it's the president of peace, after all. Okay, time for a doom break. Speaking of the president of peace, well, here's the next in charge. Breaking singularity achieved as J.D. Vance becomes meme of J.D. Vance. This is actually pretty funny. You guys have probably seen this meme of him and like all of the different versions of this, whatever this is. If J.D. Vance doesn't dress up as his own meme for Halloween, it will be one of the missed opportunities of the generation. White House, make this happen. This was tweeted out from Autism Capital. Well, the VP delivered. Here's his meme. That's actually him with the wig on. There's the meme. There's the VP. That is hilarious. There's more Happy Halloween. Can you hear the screaming? Yeah. Pretty silly. So yes, he's literally become a walking meme now. J.D. Vance. Yeah. Okay. And then there's this one for you kitty cat fans out there. This family's cat turned chef added a dead mouse to their soup. When a California mom came in from feeding the dogs and found the family's cat, named Miss Wendy, forlorn and unconsolable in the kitchen, she wondered why the animal was staring up at the soup cooking on the stove. According to Fox 26, the owner checked the security cameras to see what could have caused Miss Wendy such distress. Miss Wendy, the kitty, decided to add her own meat to the family dinner. It was a mouse. Miss Wendy is a foster cat from the SPCA. Oh, that explains it. They shared stills from the video on their Facebook page. So this is the post, I guess, from the cat mom. And the cat, I don't know how they got the camera so close, but the cat is literally dropping a dead mouse into the soup. No comment, though, on how the soup actually tasted. So I don't know. You just have to wonder. The family said it was takeout for dinner that night. Oh, okay. There you go. So they let the cat have the soup, maybe. The strange part of this story, though, is that cats dropping mice into soup became a trend about a month before this event happened. So apparently the cat, and here's another cat doing the same thing. Literally dropping the mouse in there. Doesn't appear to be AI. I don't think that video is AI. It looks real. But here's other ones with cats dropping mice into soups. So if you have a cat and you like soup, definitely be watching out. The Swedish chef, though, thinks it's really great. So anyway, notthebee.com is where that one is. That was a weird one. First billionaire fallout over Epstein. King Charles strips Prince Andrew of titles and evicts him from the Royal Lodge. Who's next? Well, I brought this up mostly because it's King Charles yet again, and notice he strips his brother of all titles, including the title of Prince, which I originally heard he was going to keep that one and lose the other titles, whatever they were. Not that it's important, but it is interesting that Charles, who is every bit as guilty as his own dumb brother is at, all kinds of stuff, but pedophilia being the main one here that we're talking about. Nope, it's okay when Charles does it, just not his brother. And we're going to take your title from you and kick you out on the road, on the street. Charles is stripping his brother, Prince Andrew, of his remaining titles and evicting him from his royal residence, Buckingham Palace, said on Thursday. In a statement, the palace said, how does the palace talk? The palace is a building. In a statement, the king said, Andrew will be known as Andrew Mountbatten Windsor and not as Prince. He will move from his royal lodge residence into a private accommodation. So, but I thought there were no victims. I thought there were no perpetrators from the Epstein list because remember, there's no client list. There's no clients. How can King Charles assume that his brother is guilty when there's been no client list provided? I just don't understand. No, I'm just teasing. But it is interesting. It says pressure had been growing on the palace, again, on the king, not the building, to oust the prince from the royal lodge after he surrendered his use of the title Duke of York earlier this month over his friendship with Epstein. An allegation by Virginia Giuffre. But the king went even further, stripping him of his title of prince that he had since childbirth. As a child of a monarch, the late Queen Elizabeth II. So here's what he says. These censures are deemed necessary, notwithstanding the fact that he continues to deny the allegations against him, the palace said, meaning King Charles said. Their Majesties wish to make clear that their thoughts and utmost sympathies have been and will remain with the victims and survivors of any and all forms of abuse. So I think he's saying that maybe he tends to think that there were other victims and that there were actual clients from the Epstein list. So is that the future biblical Antichrist saying, yes, there really is something to the Epstein case? I don't know. It is interesting, and I think that Charles felt like he had to do something because people were starting to hold it against him, even though probably, I'm guessing, he's been guilty of even far worse than what his dumb brother's done. So anyway, that's a vaccine impact article. Thought you'd like that one. Kind of silly. All right, geoengineeringwatch.org. 2 articles this week, actually both yesterday. First one is really mostly on Hurricane Melissa. Mr. Dane says, is it just a coincidence that anomalous superstorms wreak havoc on regions and or countries that possess resources coveted by the controllers? ? Rare earth minerals were recently discovered and disclosed in Jamaica. Does that fact have anything to do with the potential manipulation of Hurricane Melissa? So that would be kind of like a similar idea as to what happened in North Carolina with the hurricane that hit there, remember, and it flooded everything, and they decided, it's that rare earth mineral, what was it? One of the, I forget which one it was now, one of the important minerals that was discovered in North Carolina, that's exactly where the hurricane hit. Well, Mr. Dane here is saying that rare earth minerals were recently discovered in Jamaica. So that's an interesting one, huh? And again, I've heard as well that it was supposed to be a smart city built there. So I don't know. Maybe it's both. And then GAN this week, Global Alert News. The subject of geoengineering is now constantly being bantered about by countless so-called science sources that continue to pretend it's all just a proposal and not actually raging in our skies now. Bill Gates suddenly says there is no problem with the planet after all. He did say that. Meanwhile, not-so-natural disease-carrying mosquitoes spread across the country and bunkers are being built below new ballrooms in Washington, D.C. Hurricane Melissa and rare earth minerals recently discovered and disclosed in Jamaica. Is there a connection? How long till the looming Mad Max reality unfolds and accelerates? Global Alert News right here. And again, make sure you've seen the dimming. If you haven't watched it, it's embedded right there from the Rumble channel, and very good watch as well. It's a good thing to share with friends and family members who think that geoengineering is just a proposal. It's not actually happening, and don't worry about it. They'll never do it. And in fact, proves really without any shadow of a doubt it is happening, and it's a flying lab in the movie that essentially captures the evidence and analyzes it in the lab on the ground, proves exactly everything Mr. Dane's been saying for decades. So there you go. Geoengineeringwatch.org. And the scheduled weather for this week looks a lot like it did last week. So this is the November 8th through 12th temperature outlook. Near normal in the east, whatever they're calling normal. Not super cold, I guess. Pretty cold in the northeast, extreme northeast, Maine and New York, but pretty warm out west, even Midwest out west. So from about Louisiana and Illinois westward, it's going to be above normal temperatures. We're going to be near normal where I am, whatever normal is. I don't know. I thought this was interesting. The NOAA website says this site will remain updated during the shutdown. So that's good news. We can at least get our scheduled weather from the NOAA Climate Prediction Center, and we know that the scheduled weather will not be affected by any government shutdowns. So that's lovely, huh? ClimateAndEconomy.com for this week. Roundup of climate news, looking to see what some of the headlines are. Nature extinction crisis is mirrored by one of our own bodies. Both have huge implications for health. Earth showing alarming symptoms of climate distress as 22 of 34 indicators hit record highs. Copernicus, third warmest September on record amid persistently high ocean temperatures. We can't do this alone. 2 Arctic typhoons later, village leaders demand permanent solutions in Alaska. Wow. Growing rice in the UK, not so crazy as the climate warms. So they're growing rice in the UK now. Wow. I think it has to be pretty warm for that, doesn't it? Heavy rainfall, 3 districts under red alert in Portugal. Let's see what else. Sicily underwater. 2 feared dead as mudslides sweep through Kenya. Man, just over and over and over again. There's flooding in India. Flash flooding here in Chiang Mai. I've been to Chiang Mai. Severe flash flood strikes Chiang Mai's Mai Klang Luang after overnight rain in, however you pronounce this, Doi Inthanon, submerging rice terraces and damaging homestays in North Thailand. I've been there before. I went there on a church mission trip years ago, 2007, but we went to Chiang Mai, which is in the north part of Thailand. Beautiful area. I remember it being really hot. Let's see what else. Taiwan sweltered through its hottest October on record. Well, anyway, there's a lot of articles here. Here's giant hail, which of course is chemical ice nucleation. That's the only way you get, baseball size hail like that. Glaciers in Patagonia melting dramatically. So for the folks that say, oh, there's no problem with the climate, you might want to take a look at this, because we are being fed a load of BS, and I don't mean Barbra Streisand or Bruce Springsteen or Bravo Sierra. I mean bullshit, because we're told in one sense through the mainstream media that, oh my gosh, the climate is really terrible and things are going to get really bad in decades. And then the other side says there's nothing wrong with the climate. Don't look at anything, and it's all just total fraud, and don't pay attention to it. So that's the two sides. But the actual reality is what Mr. Dane is reporting, and that is we're past both of those. And I think that, this climate and economy website, I think, does a good job of sort of taking you on that journey and explaining how things really are far worse than we're being told. So I personally think that God has it under control, and we will continue to be able to live as long as we are meant to be able to be here, and that after the millennial reign or whatever it is, things will be repaired by God, by Jesus. But I don't know. We are in a pretty good predicament as far as what man has caused with the climate and with the environment in general. So anyways, yes, I personally am alarmed at it, and I know many of you guys are as well. So we've talked about Charles quite a bit here today, off and on. I didn't have any specific video clips this week of him, and we mentioned this last week, Gematria, how Charles, Prince of Wales, or Prince Charles of Wales, when you do the Gematria part in English and in Hebrew, both add up to 666. I mentioned last week, I think, that I wanted to show the coat of arms, or it's known as the heraldic achievement. This is it. This is the Prince of Wales, Charles, the Prince of Wales, coat of arms or heraldic achievement. And we'll get into it later. We don't have time tonight, but we will show some video of Tim Cohen talking about this and how all of this is outlined in Revelation, and how it describes with this imagery that Charles is the guy, and that you combine that with this adding up to 666, then he's definitely the guy. Okay, it can't really be anybody else. It can't be his son. It can't be his other son. It has to be Charles. And it's based on this gematria. It's based on the imagery that no one else in the family has. No one else in the world has. Not Donald Trump, not anyone else. So we'll look at that later. We don't really have time tonight, but it is there, and I'll try and find some good, concise explanation from Tim Cohen. I think he does a really good job of explaining that. And then this one, I just wanted to mention, Israel honors Christian media leaders fighting lies against the Jewish state. So this is more of what I was saying early on, like days after Charlie was assassinated, and that is they are trying to rewrite Charlie's history and say that there was never a time where he ever wavered against, see right here, Charlie Kirk, founder and president of TPUSA, will be honored posthumously for his unwavering support of Israel and his influence among younger Americans. His widow, Erica Kirk, will accept the award, recognizing his brave voice for truth. Kirk built one of the most significant pro-Israel platforms among the next generation of American conservatives. Well, yes, but he was quickly transitioning away from his unwavering support of Israel, and we saw that in the texts that were released from Candace and from TPUSA, verifying that they were real. He didn't have unwavering support. It was very much wavering, which may be the reason that he lost his life. We just don't know. But it's sure looking like it. And I thought it was kind of interesting that Israel 365 is saying that they're giving an award to Erica Kirk for Charlie's unwavering support of Israel. Isn't that nice? Yeah, read from that what you want. And I think we've got one other clip here. Might as well play it now. It's a short one, but it is odd, and this whole thing with Erica is getting stranger all the time. So let's watch this short clip, and then we'll wrap it up. This is a guy named Ian, and he makes a lot of sense here. So let's watch.
Bet you didn't see this.
No one will ever replace my husband. No. But I do see some similarities of my husband in JD. And Vice President JD. Yes, I do. And that's why I'm so blessed to be able to introduce him tonight. Because he understands the fight that we're up against. And he can articulate that in a way that transcends.
I'm just going to say it, okay? Because I know that most people are thinking it. That's weird. That is weird, okay? If you are announcing J.D. Vance, a political figure, the Vice President of the United States that is going to speak on stage, and you're the one announcing him, just announce him. You don't need to compare him to your late husband. Like, the words, my husband Charlie will never be replaced, but, yeah, sorry, that shouldn't come out of the mouth of a recent widow. Like, I don't care who you are. It's weird. It's just weird. But it's even more weird when you consider all of the other things that have happened around this, okay? Maybe some of you guys don't remember this, but I remember it. Watch this.
See, how long have you been married, and when did you know it was time to get married?
We've been married since 2021. We laugh about this because our dates are so messed up because of babies, meaning there's so many dates to remember.
Mm-hmm.
Anniversaries, like kids' birth
May
dates.
14th,
yeah,
August
all the
23rd.
things. We've been married for
How did you know it was time to get married?
4 years.
I mean,
how did we know? You just know.
it's also don't waste your time. Right?
Don't waste your time. And plus, we were ready to start our life together.
That's right. Okay,
That was an easy one.
Look, I get it, okay? The age-old thing of, like, men forgetting their anniversary or whatever, like, I get it, okay? But a woman not remembering when she got married, that, to me, is impossible. The amount of things, the amount of energy, the amount of time, the amount of different things that go into that day for a woman, to me, make it virtually impossible for them to forget that date, okay? I don't know any women who forget their anniversary, or any women who forget the day they got married or the year they got married, okay? Call me crazy. Especially somebody who's as in love as everybody says they were and as they say they were. Like, when you're that in love and you're a woman, you don't forget when you got married and how long you've been married. He fired it off like no problem. And she's sitting there still questioning, still asking questions. At the end, she says, well, that was an easy question. And by the way, kids' birthdays, what? My kids' birthdays don't affect how I remember our anniversary, the day that we got married. Like, it's even more weird because of the fact that it's J.D. Vance and Erica Kirk. Why do I say that? Well, if you guys remember, recently there was a podcast episode with Frank Turek, Rob McCoy, and Mikey McCoy, and they said something really interesting. Frank Turek specifically said something really interesting during that podcast. Watch this.
But you know what? Between you and me and our listeners, I'm not giving up on the Vance Kirk ticket.
Well, it's very exciting right there. But
I think Erica would be an amazing president someday.
Interesting. A Vance Kirk ticket. Interesting that they would bring that up. Probably nothing. But anyway, so listen. When there's one topic, okay, that it seems like so many people are saying you cannot talk about this. You cannot talk about this because of this, or this. I'm going to talk about it more. And so should you. Okay? Because sure, I'll give it to you. In the very beginning, I know everybody grieves differently, blah, 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 blah. Okay? But guess what? This woman is not off limits to talking about because her demeanor, her behavior, and the way that she has reacted to this is weird. It's just weird. And there's lots of questions. And here's the thing too. My insiders at Turning Point have said that from the very beginning, for some reason, Erica Kirk has been like the one person that is completely off limits to everyone. Like no one really interacts with her at all. Now, I get it, right? At the time when Charlie's around, it's probably like, well, he's trying to protect his wife and his kids. Okay, cool. But it's still that way. And yet the times that she shows up are times like this that seem like a very obvious, like, photo shoot, staged content. Like, it doesn't add up. It's just one of those things that surrounds this whole thing that doesn't make any sense. None of this makes any sense. But her demeanor and her behavior does not make any sense, okay? And I'm going to say it. I don't care who it offends. I don't care if you people out there that are being completely manipulated and think that it's just not okay to talk about this, okay? When are we going to learn that when there is something that you're supposed to not talk about, it's usually when you're supposed to talk about it more, okay? And hey, I hope I'm wrong, and I don't know if I'm right? But I'm gonna say it. And man, this is weird. And the more things continue to move and the more things continue to play out, it doesn't clear anything up for me. It just makes it more weird for me. But hey, I am just a conspiracy theorist, so what do I know?
Yeah, and now she's getting an award for how Charlie's unwavering support of Israel he had. So she's about to get an award for that. So I don't know. I tend to agree with him. I think that the whole thing is weird, and it seems to be getting more weird as it goes, as far as Erica and the story there. So I don't know. It's really weird. Perhaps she is an Israeli asset, as many people are saying. I don't know. Anyway, it is odd, though, that she couldn't quite remember some of those important dates instantly. So I retweeted that actually on my X account, so feel free to follow along if you're on x.com/The Diamond Report, and it's The Diamond RPRT. So yes, please follow along there if you don't mind, and we'll just do a quick little wrap up. This is the Substack. You just go there and drop in your email and click subscribe. Hope you guys enjoyed the earlier start time tonight. Had a couple people reach out and say thank you for doing that. So, yeah, I think it will really help the people, at least out east of here, Eastern time zone. The Subscribe Star and Substack are ways that you can support the Diamond Report if you want to contribute to what I'm doing. No pressure, but it is there. And thank you guys for your continuing, ongoing help. The 14 people that have stepped up and are supporting this show in some way or form, and 7 on each, both Subscribestar and Substack. So thank you guys for supporting the show, and I could definitely use more support, but again, couldn't we all? And then make sure if you're on YouTube that you please subscribe to one or both channels. This is now the main channel, which is the Resurrected from the Grave YouTube channel that I was able to get back from YouTube/Google a month or two ago. Yeah, and that is the main channel. It was my original Diamond Disc channel on YouTube. It is back. It's all cleaned up, and the only things on here now are the Diamond Report and End Times dates. So feel free to subscribe there if you don't mind. They are knocking down my subscriber count. I've lost, I don't know, I guess not 1,000 yet, but probably 700 or so. Looks like, since they revised and reopened the channel. And then the main channel, what used to be the main channel, is now the backup channel. Take It to the Lord in Prayer, End Time States. So that one is going up slightly, 1 or 2 a week usually. So anyways, thank you for subscribing on YouTube and Rumble. Rumble is the other option here. So thank you to everybody out on Rumble tonight watching. Got several people on there. So hello, and thank you guys for supporting and for watching the show on Rumble too. And then the show tomorrow at some point will be uploaded on BitChute and Brighteon as well, and then back on Rumble in its completed form. There's the Brighteon channel, and it's, you can just do a search for the Diamond Report if you happen to be on Brighteon, and as well as BitChute. And then the band group is our community of folks, over 100 strong, and hopefully we'll continue to grow. I haven't been using it quite as much as I was originally, but it's a really good place to meet people and to post things about what you're looking at. And I do tend to look at those things and consider those things to, as far as talking about them on the show. So the Diamond Report, just look for that logo. You can just do a search on Band, or it's band.us is the website. Band.us, BAND.us, and then just do at the Diamond Report, and that will get you there. So yes, this is the new logo, so be looking for that. I haven't updated the logo everywhere, like on the Substack. It's still showing the old one, so I'll get in there and update those eventually. Just haven't Haven't had time yet. I've been too busy. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the show tonight, and luckily my voice held out. I had to take a couple breaks, but it's getting better. And thank you guys for being here tonight, though. Blessings to you all, and we'll do it again next week. We'll stick with the start time, though, 9 o'clock Central Time, which is 10 p.m. Eastern. So we'll stick with that. And I have my reasons for doing that. I'm trying to move my schedule to be less late and a little bit more in the normal range, whatever normal might be, even though normal probably doesn't really exist, honestly. But I'm trying to move it up a little bit. So we'll stick with the 9 p.m. start time for a while and see how that works. Hopefully you like that. Definitely gives me a little more energy just because I'm starting earlier. So that's good. And then, next live show will be November the 9th. Next show. So watch for it then. And again, November the 9th on the 2 YouTube channels as well as on Rumble. And we will start at 9 p.m. Central, which is 10 p.m. Eastern. So we'll see you guys again next week. And I think I've played all my videos and stuff for tonight. So we'll just say good night. And God bless you all. Thank you guys again for hanging out with me tonight. I've really enjoyed it, and hope you guys did as well. And we'll get back again. We'll get back together next week, and I will jump on here even earlier if something huge happens. But so far, I haven't really needed to do that. So we'll see you guys next week, and blessings to you all. Thank you guys, and God bless.